Siska, I'm going to butcher these, Bikima, Nakai First Nations, and the Tunai First Nations, and the Stony Nakado, including the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Goodstoney First Nations. The city of Calgary is also home to the Métis Nation within Alberta, Nose Hill Métis District 5, and Elbow Métis District 6. So if you guys have questions as we're going through, please feel free to put them into the chat there, and we'll try to answer them after Edward is done presenting, and he can always flip back through his presentation and go back. We'll be taking questions in the room as well and in the chat. So if you could try to keep yourselves muted for that, that'd be much appreciated. And thank you guys for coming. And I will let Ed present here.
Could you just make sure everybody can hear again? I thought somebody said.
Can't you hear?
Shirley can't hear you.
Check. Yeah, I'll do a little bit of talking right now, make sure that everyone can hear. Can everyone hear what I'm saying as well? Check. Hello. Okay. Thank you, Shirley. That's nice to know. I'll just keep talking. We've lost the video of you, Mallory, but I'm sure you're doing important things, getting the IT stuff all set up. I would say, just so that there's some audio that you can potentially hear. I do have some other colleagues that are going to join me today. They've joined the Zoom meeting call as well. So as I'm doing my presentation, they may be looking at the chat. So if there's some smaller questions that are floated in the chat, they may be able to answer some of them really quickly. Otherwise, we can also have a discussion if you save it for the end and just ask or interrupt me or whatever. But yes, so I'm not sure, am I presenting now, Mallory? Do I have the green light to go? Yes. Okay. Perfect.
Yes.
All right. Okay, so yes, as Mallory had mentioned, my name is Edward Harrison. I work for the CFIA, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, and it's a pleasure to be here with you virtually today. It's unfortunate we don't have tons of resources and funding right now and money I wish I could be there in person, but the virtual option is here, and we're all used to Zoom meetings after the pandemic, so hopefully we'll make the best of this. Okay, so I will go ahead and I will share my screen and put up my presentation. And if someone can just chime in to make sure that I've done it appropriately. There we go. This one right here, sharing that. Now let's find out if that's up. All right, it says I'm sharing it. I'm gonna believe the computer, and let's just jump right down. So as Mallory had mentioned, I'm going to talk today about our proposed regulations for livestock identification and traceability. So anyone who's outside of the goat sector in the cattle or bison or sheep sector or pigs knows that Canada has regulations for livestock traceability in place, but notably goats are not currently federally regulated for that. For livestock traceability. So I'm going to talk about what these what we're proposing to put in place and what that means for producers. Okay, so just to start off, obviously, with the purpose, this is going to be as I mentioned, the main aspects of the regulations, but I'm just going to talk about goats and goat producers and whatnot, and what's going to be impacting you guys. Obviously, you don't need to hear about the cattle and bison folk or cervids even for that matter. And so just really quickly, the objectives of a livestock traceability system: reduce the impacts of animal disease outbreaks. We want to provide accurate and up-to-date livestock and identity and movement information. And then this is going to lead to better protection of both animal health and public health. And so Obviously, why is this change needed? So like I said, there are traceability regulations in place for other sectors. And the first gap, the big issue is identified there, that like livestock species that share diseases, very, very economically impactful diseases like foot and mouth disease, and scrapie and whatnot. There's species that goats specifically, that goats can get those diseases, but sheep are regulated, but goats are not. So this is a gap. This is a problem, because if something happens, we can have eyes and data on one species and one sector, but not on another. And so our regulatory proposal is going to include goats and farm cervids as regulated species. We're going to be reducing the window to report. So for goats, it won't really matter because this will be starting out for you guys fresh. But right now for the cattle sector, it's up to 30 days, 60 for bison on imports and stuff like that. But everything will be down to 7-day window for reporting movement events and stuff like that. And then the geographical location of sites. Right now, we don't have the greatest information for those regulated sectors that we have right now. But we know, and we've been working with the provinces. Each province has set up a PID program, and that's a premises identification program. And so hopefully many of you already have a PID registered through Alberta. I do believe that Alberta has a great PID program in place and some incentives to get people to register their site through their PID program. And once you get that PID number, you use that for all your reporting. And it's very simple, and it can be used outside of livestock traceability for other things like natural disasters, and just for the province to know where animals are in some sort of event where it's an emergency for whatever the reason. And then the last kind of gap is domestic movement information, so movement reporting. And so for the cattle and bison and sheep sector, there isn't movement reporting right now. They put tags on the animals' ears, but then there's no movement reporting until slaughter. And so we're going to be introducing movement reporting for all sectors. So for goats, you'll get ID and movement reporting all at once. It's a big change, but it's going to be it's easier, I guess, in a way to just get it all done at once instead of doing it piecemeal the way that we did with cattle and sheep and bison. So as I mentioned, premises identification, that's kind of like one of the 3 main pillars for traceability. You've got ID animals, you've got ID your location, and you've got movement reporting. Those are the 3 main pillars. And so it would be required to have a PID number to report all this information. So it takes like 10 to 15 minutes to register with the province. And it's free. So we're just encouraging, but this is the Alberta Goat Association, and I know that Alberta has a really good PID program with lots of participation. So kind of preaching to the choir here, but if you don't have one already, please go ahead and just look into it, and having a PID number will help when the regulations do come in place, or even right now. Right, so moving on to the first kind of pillar, or sorry, second pillar, the identification of goats and their carcasses. So what would be required under these proposed regulations? And I'll just back up really quickly, because I think probably a large portion of you guys would already know that we've already gone through Canada Gazette 1, and that's the official gazetting process. That's how we do public consultation for federal regulations in Canada. That's the Canada Gazette, and it gets published in CG1, Canada Gazette 1, and that's a formal consultation process. We've done that as of March 2023. It was up for 90 days. We received tons of comments, some really helpful, and we took a lot of those comments, and we're at the point where we're trying to incorporate changes based on those comments, and we're looking to publish again in CG2, Canada Gazette 2, and I'll talk about the timelines for that a bit later. But a lot of this slide is going to be the black text is what we had in CG1, and the red is kind of the changes that we've made based on what we're hearing and what we heard through that first consultation. So as far as the identification of goats and their carcasses, so it would be required to identify a goat or its carcass with an approved indicator. And I'm going to say approved indicator repeatedly, but really that means an ear tag or a leg band or a whale web tail tag. And I'll talk about those later on, and I'll talk about how the approved indicators work as far as like the approval and what gets published and what is an approved indicator. But just so you know, they all must be identified with an approved indicator or tag before they are removed from a site. And ideally, this is a scenario where if you're raising animals, the farm of origin, right? Your animals can, if they're born on site, they can exist on your site for however much time that they want, untagged. It's up to you. But the second that you're going to be moving them off site, you'll want to have a tag in their ear or a leg band or some other approved identification method. And then that also means, though, if you are receiving goats, breeding stock, whatever, if you receive them untagged, you would need to apply an approved indicator that has been allocated to your site. That's how, when you purchase them, you give them your PID number and your account information. So those tags are unique and they're known to be associated with your site. There are a number of exemptions. We had a few planned, but then based on the CG1 public consultation, we're introducing some other ones. So there would be an exemption for the ID of animals if they're being seized based on welfare issues, if they have to be urgently evacuated from a site, if they have a morphology that doesn't allow for the application of any of the indicators that have been approved. And this is something that we've always known is kind of an issue for the goat sector, because we are aware there are breeds that have very small to nothing as far as ears. That's why the leg band and the tail web tag are, officially pre-approved, and those are options moving forward. That was with in consultation with the Canadian National Goat Federation, the CNGF. The following exemptions are if the carcass has been abandoned in place without permission. So if somebody has dumped a carcass on your property, there wouldn't be a need for you to tag it. It wasn't done under your farm practice. There's also, after CG1 having those comments come in, we are planning on putting in other exemptions for this requirement. So animals that must be urgently moved to a veterinary clinic, they would not necessarily need to be tagged if it was from like the farm of origin and they weren't already tagged because they've been moved to your site, for instance. Animals between sites of the same farm. One of the things we heard a lot is that, well, some of us have more than one PID allocated within our farm, and farm can mean a single site. Sometimes farm means still under one management, but it can mean more than one PID site. And we're not talking about like 100 kilometers away or even like 50 kilometers away. We're talking relatively close, but it has to be under the same farm. So if you're moving animals between your farm sites, they can be untagged. But again, within the same farm. Animals born at a site that is not a farm can instead be identified at the first farm where they are moved after birth. So this is really an exemption for an instance where if you had to take an animal into the vet clinic, a pregnant animal, it gives birth, there's no need for the vet clinic or for you to tag it at the vet clinic, this newborn. It can be brought back to a site, the farm of origin where it's going to be raised, and you can apply the tag there. That's just trying to do common sense here about our livestock traceability, not have people necessarily tagging newborn animals before having them go back. This could also happen in some rare instances, say if there's a pregnant animal at an auction, for instance. Moving on, there's also would be an exemption for animals slaughtered on the same site as the farm of origin. And that sounds a little bit odd. I do want to clarify that abattoirs under PID programs, the provincial PID programs, abattoirs are their own site. They have to get their own PID. They are something different. But we have come across this in the traceability program in the pig sector, and I think it also applies in small ruminants as well. Sometimes there are production sites that also will have a registered abattoir on site. And so this exemption is just to make sure that it makes sense that if you are raising your own animals and you have an abattoir on that same farm site, and you're not receiving any other animals at that abattoir from any other site, you're just using your own abattoir for your own purposes, you would not need to apply tags just to move your animals to slaughter while still on your farm. However, if that abattoir was receiving animals from other locations, then that's a different story. And you would need to apply tags, because now we're talking about being able to track what is coming through that abattoir. There would be an exemption for goat carcasses. So we chose 3 months or younger. And so this is not just goat carcasses, this is all ruminant carcasses. We realized that the way we were writing the regs, there was going to be a need to apply tags for carcasses being moved off site. But really, there is very little disease risk for freshly born animals. So we chose 3 months because it's very obvious when an animal is under 3 months old, versus if we were to choose 1 year, sometimes it can be a little bit ambiguous. So for carcasses, so an animal has died, is born on your site, but then has died, and it is quite young, it's under 3 months, it can be sent off without a tag. That's fine. You do not need to, because we understand there is a cost to buying these tags. So there is very little disease risk for these types of animals, so they can be sent off the site without a tag. And then finally, the exemption would be for carcasses whose head has been ordered removed for sampling. So speaking of the goat sector and the scrapie world, obviously a lot of the time the tag is going to be in the ear, but if there is concerns about scrapie and the head must be removed and sent for sampling, would you need to apply a tag to the rest of the body somehow? No. So this is fine. We understand that this potentially can happen. So we want to make these regs kind of be common sense in that sense. So those are the current proposed exemptions for ID that we have moving forward to CG2. I'll just say now also, I just realized I can't see the chat right now. So if there are questions popping up, hopefully either Corey, my colleague, Corey Rott, or I think I have another colleague who potentially has joined as well, Marie-Andre Fredette. If there's questions in the chat, maybe they're answering them. If not, save them to the end and I can answer them. Next, I'll talk about the approved indicators. So for goats and their carcasses, what we have moving forward, and this is through consultation going way back to like 2017 with the CNGF, we realized the goat sector needs more than just ear tags. So there would be RFID indicators. So I have up there HDX, so half duplex, or FDX, full duplex, and non-electric. Those are all the different types of indicators that the technology that can be there. And so HDX and FDX are just names for the different technology of an RFID. RFID is radio frequency identification, and it's just the types of, when you put a pass, when you tap your credit card or whatever it is, that's RFID. Anyhow, so the types of indicators that are pre-approved, that would be approved once these regs are published, are ear tags, obviously, and I've got some examples up. These are already available on our CFIA website under the pre-approved indicators page. They also are available on the CCIA web store for purchase. And I do understand that that Ashley from CCIA will be speaking later after myself, and so she can tell you more about how to purchase tags and whatnot. So yeah, there is the ear tag, there's a tail web tag version, and there's a leg band tag. And I do understand that the leg band tags are not ideal in certain circumstances. I do understand the tail web tags are not ideal in certain circumstances. And I do understand that the ear tags are not ideal in certain circumstances for certain breeds. But what we have here with these options is hopefully someone that producers can find something that works for their specific their breeds and their production needs. But it is not a written in stone list. And this list of approved indicators, it will actually be something called an IVR document, so incorporated by reference. And what that means, just to really quickly spit this out, the regulations are really hard to change. It's really hard to write regulations. It takes a long time. There has to be rigorous consultation, make sure industry and the Canadian public is ready for it. An IVR document is something that's referenced by the regulations, but we have a little bit more flexibility to adjust these things. So as newer technologies come out for types of indicators, and that's why we're saying indicators instead of tags everywhere in the regs, because we want to say indicators so it's broad. So as there's new technology, new advancements, whatever it may be that we can't imagine now, if there's a better system out there, when it gets evaluated and presented to us and say, this is something that the industry would like to have for indicators, that is something that we could put into the IBR document fairly easy. It takes like maybe 6 months of consultation time period and some evaluation, but the point is it's more flexible. And what I'm getting at here is that while these right now are not everyone's ideal for indicators for goat species right now, hopefully there's some new advancements or changes or things are brought forward by industry associations to the responsible administrator, the CCIA, and then they bring it to us, the CFIA, and we usually approve anything that has gone through the rigor of being tested and shown to work. Yes, so these indicators listed on the table of approved indicators, like I mentioned, and they'd be approved for all types of domestic movement of goats and goat carcasses within Canada and also for export. And there's also one other aspect of this, goats aged 12 months or less move directly from their farm of origin to an abattoir within Canada, could have, or exported for immediate slaughter, could be identified with a herd mark indicator. And so really quickly, the difference here, a herd mark indicator is usually individual ID indicators have a 15-digit code, and that's following an international standard, and that's to ensure that that's an individual code. But what we have in the pig sector right now is herd marks, and herd marks are a 5-digit code that's kind of like not an individual number, but it's a site individual number, so it's allocated to your site. So you would get a herd mark code, which is that, like I said, 5 digits, and then when you order tags, they'd be slightly cheaper because, or that's the thought, because you could just get a bulk order and they'd all have your herd mark on there for your site. If you're someone who sends a lot of animals off to slaughter at a young age, that's a more affordable option. But I would stress that the CFIA needs to talk to the CCIA, that's the responsible administrator for goats once they become regulated, the CNGF, and all other industry associations to talk about this scheme of how we would be using the approved herd mark allocation and that numbers. That's yet to be completely finalized. But as I said before, the indicators will live in that IBR page, which can be modified, that has a little bit more flexibility than the regs. All right, so moving on to the loss of approved indicators. As I mentioned, the way the program is designed is that when animals leave the farm of origin, they should be tagged, but obviously tags get lost sometimes. So what would you be required to do? So you'd be required to apply an approved indicator to a goat or carcass that is not bearing one if it has arrived at your site. This is except for the farm of origin. If you have animals on the farm of origin and they lose a tag, like you don't have to report anything. You would just need to apply a new tag before they are sent off. Next, it would be required to report the application of a new approved indicator within 7 days of application. So right, so if you already know that they lost their approved indicator, this animal, if you know what that number is, then all the better. You apply the new indicator and you report that information to the database. So you have that. You report the ID of the new approved indicator, and then if known, the old number. For larger herds, or if there's more than one indicator that's lost, it might be difficult. So this is an if known. If you do know it, it's good to report it. It helps for the tracing, but if not, so be it. And then you would report the PID of your site. And then if you had received this animal without an indicator, then you'd want to report the PID of the site that it came from. And then if it was transported to your site to lose its indicator, then obviously you'd have a manifest, a record of that's provided to you by the transporter of the animals, and that would have the license plate or the ID of the transport. So you'd report all that information. Oh, I received a bunch of animals today, but 2 of them didn't have indicators. I had to put my own in. You'd have to do that reporting, supply this information, send it off to the CCIA. There is exemptions that we're working towards under the new update after CG1 going to CG2, and that is that operators of feedwater rest stations or resting points, they wouldn't be required to apply a new indicator because the animals are just in transit. They've they've had feed and water rest, and then they continue on their journey. It'd be the responsibility of the person who's receiving the animals at the end of their journey to put a new indicator in. They don't have to put indicators in. Community pastures, I'm not sure how frequently goats go to community pastures. I know they go to pasture for various reasons, sometimes for grazing, in like parklands or solar, panel fields and stuff like that. That's a really interesting aspect of the goat sector that we want to make sure it works well for you guys. But community pastures are specifically where there's commingling happening. So there isn't really an operator of the community pasture a lot of the time to apply new tags. So if your animals do go to a community pasture and they lose a tag, when they come back, you would have to apply the new tag. It wouldn't be the responsibility of the owner of the community pasture. Same thing for veterinary clinics and agricultural society sites. So what is an agricultural society site? Fairs, exhibitions, rodeos, 4-H clubs, anytime that animals are being brought together, kind of commingled, but they always end up going, well, not always, but they usually go back to their original farm. The Ag Society site would not be responsible for applying a new tag if there was an animal that arrived at their site untagged. That's more so the owner of the animal who's bringing it to the site and then eventually bringing it back. Movements of goats and their carcasses. Okay, so the general rule is that as the operator of the destination site, you would be required to report the arrival of goats or carcasses to your site within 7 days. And that's what do you report? The PID number of the departure site, the PID number of your site, the date, and not the time, but the date the animals left the departure site, the date the animals arrived at your site, and the ID number on the approved indicators, and the license plate number of whatever vehicle had moved them there, the conveyance, as it were. And so I've got a few things underlined there, and a lot of this information is going to be provided to you by the transporter. Whoever is moving livestock will be, under these proposed regs, will be required to, essentially where there's already a lot of requirements for provincial manifests, and when you move livestock, we're just bare minimum asking for them to include the PID numbers and the time the animals left the site and their ID and stuff like that. A lot of that's already on a manifest, and that's going to be provided to you, but they'll also be required under the traceability regulations to provide that to you. So not only under the humane transport of animals types of things or provincial regulations, but there's a lot of requirements or reasons for the transporter to give you that manifest now. And you can see there that time was removed. So we heard that in CG1 that reporting the date and time of departure is really burdensome, so we removed time. Movements of goats and their carcasses continued. Yeah, so there would be no movement reporting required for movements between two sites of the same farm. I kind of mentioned that earlier, and movements back and forth from a pasture used for grazing purposes. So different than a community pasture, as I mentioned, if you're just moving your animals to a pasture and there's no other animals from different sites there, there's no movement reporting requirement. You're just moving animals to a site. There's no commingling happening. You move them back. It's fine, right? We're trying to make this make sense because this is about livestock traceability in a case where animals are exposed to potential disease and risk and whatnot. If they're not being exposed to other livestock species, then no need to have the movement reporting. The responsibility to report movement would lie with the owners of animals and not with the operators of destination sites for movements to and back from community pastures. As I'd already mentioned, and to and back from veterinary clinics, Ag Society sites. Yeah, as I'd already mentioned. And so this slide is just going to talk really quickly about the transport of goats and carcasses. Before I was talking about movement reporting and what you need to do as the receiver of animals at your site. But for anyone who's also involved in the transport of goats, if you're just moving a few of your goats in your own trailer, this applies to you as well. So the operator of a conveyance would be required to have a manifest document with the following information and provide that to the destination site within 24 hours after the arrival or unloading of the animals, right? So like I'd mentioned before, this information has to be presented to the people that are receiving the animals. That's the PID numbers, the number of animals or carcasses that have been moved, the date the animals left the departure site, And then we're also including the contact information of the person operating the conveyance, just in case we need to speak to who actually was moving the animals for whatever reason during a tracing exercise, if there is some sort of outbreak and we need the information really quickly. And then the license plate number of the conveyance. And so moving on from the requirements for the transporters, let's talk about the export of goats. So it would be required to apply an approved indicator to a goat before it's loaded for export. You would be required to report the export of the goat within 7 days. And same kind of information, PID number of the sites where the animals were loaded. And we have it written here of all the sites where the animals were loaded and the number of animals loaded at each of those sites. This is in case someone's an exporter is doing like a milk run pickup at various locations before sending off. We need to know where all those animals have come from, the dates the animals were loaded and the number of animals loaded on each of those dates. We need to have the indicator numbers and the locations where they're being exported. And so when we say the locations where they're being exported, we're looking for the country, the state, the region. It doesn't have to be the exact address. If you have the exact address, great, but it can be down to just the region level or something similar. And finally, the license plate number of the conveyance that's going to be taking them. As far as import goes, there's identification requirements that I really quickly want to talk about. You'd be required to identify a goat with an approved indicator at the first site after which it's unloaded. So when animals cross the borders, they can sometimes come across the border not bearing an indicator, like a USDA tag. If that's the case, then at the first site where they're unloaded, then they need to have a Canadian approved indicator applied. So there is, like I kind of just alluded to, there is an exemption for goats not re-import. Well, this is an exemption. Goats re-imported into Canada after being exported don't need to be re-identified. But what I was getting at before is the exemption for goats bearing a foreign indicator that has been deemed equivalent to a Canadian approved indicator. They don't need to be re-identified. So what does that mean? What did I just say? If goats are bearing USDA tags, those are deemed equivalent to our Canadian tags. So if your goat's coming across, if you want to put in a Canadian indicator, fill your boots, you totally can. But if it's bearing a USDA approved indicator, not just a manufacturer's kind of like tag, it has to be a USDA one that's deemed equivalent, RFID and the whole deal. Then you can, and those details will be on the approved indicators page of which ones are deemed equivalent. So you don't have to re-identify those animals. And then finally, there is an exemption for goats for immediate slaughter. So if they're coming across the borders directly to the abattoir, they don't need to be identified. Right, and so the importing of goats, but the reporting aspect, obviously as these animals arrive at your site, within 7 days, you have to report the location from where they came from. Again, we're looking for country, state, down to the region level if you can. If you have the address, great, but if you don't, it doesn't have to be the exact address, but it can, as close as you can get. The PID number of your site, the date the animals arrived at your site, ID numbers, and even the ID numbers of equivalent indicators. They should be accepted in the databases, and license plates and stuff like that. And then for disposal of carcasses, you would be required to report on-site disposal of carcasses within 7 days. And that just means your PIDs, the date which the carcass was disposed, and the indicator. But if you're disposing of like a goat carcass that died on its farm of origin and was never identified, there's no reporting, right? Like if it was born there, it was never identified, it just died, there's nothing that you need to do. That's the end of its story. It's when you have received animals and they're bearing an indicator and it dies on your site and you're disposing of it, report. Or if you have put an indicator in the animal's ear, then you should report it, because that lets us know that that indicator is no longer in circulation. All right, so I've gone from premise ID, location, animal ID, this import, export, movement reporting, carcass disposal, covered all the bases. I'll quickly, I know you probably want to know more about what the next steps are and where we are, how close are these regs to being published. So we are currently in this phase where we're communicating the main changes to stakeholder associations prior to publication. So that's what we're doing now. This is it. And we're preparing on our side, a CFIA, we're preparing guidance documents because we have the regs almost finalized. And so we're at the point where we're putting together the guidance documents that will be published at the same time when the actual regs, because regulations read kind of lawyerish, and what people really need is guidance in plain language. And so we're developing those right now. And that will be given to our responsible administrators. So they'll have it on their websites. All those guidance documents are sector specific, site specific in some cases. We're trying to cover all the bases so that everyone's questions can be answered through these guidance documents. We'll be giving them to the major associations, provincial associations as well, so that they can get the word out. And this is all at publication that we would be doing this. We also will be working on our guidance and our training for our CFIA inspectors. And we anticipate the final publication of these regs in winter 2026. We were hoping for last spring, but then the proroguing of government, the election that was called, kind of grinds all of that governance and regulatory machinery to a halt, and it has to restart again. And then everyone gets put into queues, and depending on what the government's priorities are moving forward, things get shuffled, and we're now looking at early winter 2026. And so what does that mean? That means that we potentially will be publishing the CG2, the final version of these regs, in January, February, March, early winter 2026. And when it's published in CG2, that means that it's published, but it does not mean that these regulations would be in force. And what does that mean for you guys as producers? The whole plan for implementation and how this is going to roll out is that they get published so that you finally get to see the final version and you can see what are these requirements. The guidance documents will be published at that same time. And then there will be a 1 year transition period. And so before they come into force, there'll be a full year where a CFIA's job will be communication. We'll be trying to get the message out to you guys as much as possible. We'll be, as I mentioned before, the responsible administrators, industry associations, like this one, we're going to be giving them as much information as possible so they can reach out to producers. And this is especially important for the goat sector because you guys haven't been federally regulated yet. And so there's large operations, and then there's small operations, and there's the teeny tiny operations, and we need to get that message out to everyone. And so we're going to do our best in that year to get those requirements out there. And so if we do publish winter 2026, that means that we can anticipate the regulations coming into force and being law in early 2027. And so a lot of times producers say, well, so does that mean that CFIA inspectors are going to be coming down with a heavy hammer, like January 2027? What if I'm still learning? What if I didn't get any of this communication? I just wanted to make it clear that when CFIA inspectors are, these regs are in force in, let's say, early 2027, the CFIA inspectors are going out there with the job of communication to start. Really and truly, while the regs will be in force, they are always looking to talk and inform regulated parties before they hand out fines. It's never in the enforcement matrix, like we call it the enforcement matrix. It starts with communication, always starts, even if it's not new regs. If you've never had an experience with a CFIA inspector and never had, and they know this, and they're saying, this is something that you need to do to become compliant with the regulations. It starts with that kind of conversation. They might give you a letter eventually, but it kind of has to ramp up. There's like it's based on harm, history, and intent, right? So if you're new, and the entire sector will be new to these regulations, inspectors will be communicating at the start. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. And I think with that, that's the end of my presentation. I'll just end the slideshow. And all right. Any questions? I think I was hoping to go a little bit faster than that. Sorry, Mallory, but still some time for questions, I hope. Oh, wait, I can see the chat now. There's a lot of. Right, that's a good question, Shannon. Yeah, and I can see that Maria Andre has answered that. Yeah, so if you take a goat to the vet for treatment and then return it back to your farm, you would just report the movement there and back, and it can be in one kind of like one package movement, like as long as the goat was not there for like months, right? Because we want to do it within 7 days of the event.
Yeah, Edward, I think I answered all of those in the chat.
Oh yeah, there's a lot, yeah.
So if people that did ask the questions feel that the answer is not clear, just maybe I would invite them to just unmute and ask further details. But other than that, I think we were able to ask what we had in the chat so far.
Thank you, Mary Andre. That's helpful. Right. I'm just looking through right now. If anyone has any questions and they want to unmute and pose their question, feel free. While we're waiting for questions and unmuting, and if there are any, I hope to also stay on after. I believe after this you'll be having your lunch, and then Ashley from CCIA will be presenting if that is still the plan. So I'll probably stick around for that presentation as well. So if there are any questions for CFIA related things, I'll be on as well for that. I can't really hear.
Can you hear me?
No, it's not coming through. Sorry.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
A little bit. It's kind of like muffled.
Okay. That's so that's the push. My phone. Hello. Transfer.
Oh, I can stop sharing that. I'm so sorry. Yeah, like Shannon said, I can't really hear. If it's a question, maybe. Oh, if the government changes again, does that delay the process? Yes, it would. If it changed, like, between now and 2026, winter 2026, yes, it would delay it. But once we get to publication in CG2, if the government changes after that, then that wouldn't delay the process at all. I hopefully that makes sense.
Can you guys hear me now?
Oh yeah, quite well.
Yeah. Okay. Just we can't hear Ed's response then.
Oh no.
Yeah. So we've got a guy back here. But I'll read the question from the
Okay.
chat. I think that's the part we're at right now, correct?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. Okay, which one are we on then? Which one are we on then? Okay, so the next question that we'll go to is, will this regulation / tagging apply to pets, to goats being sold as pet stock versus those going into the human food chain?
Right, yes, yeah, and so, yes, it would apply, to goats being sold as pet stock, but then eventually going into the food chain, yes. And so, we don't have, a term for, it's hard to define pets. We've used companions, used for, companionship or entertainment purposes and whatnot, but they still would be regulated, yes.
Conference between some people who can test it with us.
Okay, can you still hear us? Oh, okay. So what we're gonna do is, this is for the speaker, we use the headphone. For the microphone,
Yeah,
we use,
microphones.
Should be on this one? No, shot.
Yeah.
That, sorry, that microphone isn't, I'm not hearing anything.
how about now? Is it any better now?
I can hear now.
Exactly.
Okay, but now we can't.
So they can hear us now, but then we would
The
use,
next question would be, yes, the regulations will apply to goats as well. And then confirming that, next question that was posted, when things are purchased, when purchasing stock, they are tagged by the current owner. If not, is there any additional reporting that is needed?
Right, yeah, and Mallory, you can read Mary Andre, she's put answers.
Now maybe you can hear us.
Yeah, I can hear you.
That's right.
Mallory, you can just read out Mary Andre's responses. So Fredette MA, that's my colleague. So, and she's put the answers in.
Okay, there you go. So she said that when purchasing them, the producer from whom you're buying them from is required to identify them before they leave the farm. If you are receiving them at your site and they are not identified, you are required to identify them and report the information on the fact that you applied the tags at the same time that you were reporting their arrival information. Edward is going to go through the information in a few minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the other question was, if I take a goat to the vet for treatment and then return with it back to my farm after it's treated, would I still require to report the movement? And that was answered to yes. Garbled. All right. Is there any other questions from the room or from the chat at all about Edward's presentation? Oh, for pet goats, do they need to be reported every time they leave the property then?
Right. That really depends on, can you hear me, Mallory?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That depends on where the pet goats are going. So pet goats are still regulated goats. And if they're going to grandma's house and there's no other livestock there, and she's not, doesn't have an agricultural facility, then there's no movement reporting needed, right? But if your pet goat is being brought to a farm or where other livestock might be, then yes, the movement reporting would be required.
So if let's say they're going for 4-H,
Yeah,
Bring the
4-H.
goats to,
Yeah, and that one, because it's an agricultural society site, the 4-H people would not need to, whoever's hosting the event at that site wouldn't need to do the reporting. But what we'd want you guys to do is whoever owns that pet goat that goes there, just report that you took the pet goat to that site and then brought it back. Simple as that. Just the main thing is you just need the PID of that site that you brought it to, and the rest of the information you should have within your account.
yes, in the back here. Yep. So we just have a question in the room here.
Yep.
Speak loudly.
Okay, can you hear me? Am I
Yeah, I
loud
can hear
enough?
you. Yeah,
Woohoo!
yeah.
All right, this is a slightly different situation
Sure.
than most. I raise goats,
Mm-hmm.
obviously. Every summer, I take one doe and her 1 or 2 babies to a supportive living, a seniors,
Right,
and they live there all summer.
right.
So they're there
Okay.
for about 5 months.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the process of seeing if they can get a PID.
Yeah.
If they can't for some reason, how do I report that? Because the
Yeah.
adult goat will obviously need to be tagged. So how do I
Yeah.
report that?
And so this is a little bit of subtlety with these regulations. That's great that you're looking into getting them a PID. And just in general, that sounds like it's like a support animal type of thing. I love that. But the regulations, the federal regulations are going to say, please report a PID number when you move animals, but we can't compel the provinces to do something in our federal regulations. So
Right.
there's actually, if you don't have a PID for a site because you never got it or you don't want it, you can report, I think it's 5 different bits of information: contact, legal land description, geo coordinates. It's more burdensome to report that, but it is an
Okay.
option. So
Okay.
so that site, if they can't get a PID for whatever reason, and I guess it makes sense because it's a seniors facility, you can just report the contact information, their address. The geo coordinates might be a bit difficult to get, but do your best. I understand it's a kind of a unique scenario, right? But
Yeah.
you can report that information as an alternative.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, great.
Thanks.
What about to schools for educational events?
Yeah, exactly. So if there's as long as the school doesn't have other livestock there, totally you can just move them there, educational event and whatnot.
So I think this also, when we've had our discussions, for producers that are doing vegetation control jobs, obviously in Alberta, because goats aren't recognized as livestock yet in Public Lands Act, but if you're doing a
Mhm.
private vegetation job, as long as there's no other livestock there, you can take your goats there.
Yeah.
And I don't
Yep.
think you can give your coordinates, but I think you don't even have to report it, right?
Nope.
Because there's no risk of disease transfer. So that also goes for outgoing, if you're taking your goats to do a job in BC or Saskatchewan, as long as there's no other livestock there, you don't need to report it. Now, wildlife, some would say differently, but that is a different part of the government. It's an argument,
That's right. That's right.
argument there. So yeah, so that's the biggest thing is, and even then, I guess the question is like for those producers that are doing vegetation control, like the idea is if an animal leaves, it should have a tag on its ear. Is what you guys are mostly seeing.
Yeah.
And I think some of the other questions that have come up is, and that's come up in the past is people are concerned that they're going to be CFIA is going to be hunting down goat trailers and finding people and stuff. And to my understanding, CFIA is, even since the BSC hasn't fined anybody for moving cattle without tags, correct?
Yeah, so we have our CFI inspectors are out there doing things risk-based, right? We don't have the biggest force of inspectors in the world, right? We can't be knocking on everyone's door. But what we are doing is we send our inspectors to those sites that are high risk. So we have inspectors at federal abattoirs all the time. We have inspectors visit provincial abattoirs. They visit municipal type of setups in that sense. They visit assembly yards. They visit auctions, where there's commingling happening, where there's a large amount and there's that high risk of issues. They are not sent to individual farms. And so I mean, if an inspector is on a farm for another reason, they may be like, oh, I can do a trace inspection while I'm here. That does happen. But they're out there doing risk-based work because it's about just making sure that people are complying at the places where the highest risk is, right? So to answer your question, yeah, there's the possibility that they can look at a transport and it's filled with goats that are untagged. Or they're at an auction or an assembly center. Whenever a full trailer of untagged animals arrives, they'll ask, where did these animals come from? And they'll probably get in touch with that sender and inform them, hey, you need to be putting tags in animals' ears.
And are they still are we any closer to any idea of a timeline on when? I had to step out quickly. Are we still like kind of between January and March?
Yeah, we're looking at early winter 2026. So it's going to be probably January to March, around there. Yeah.
So not a confirmed set date. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't confirm, but I can confirm this, that the moment that we are at CG2 and we can publish, there will be guidance documents. There will be a massive amount of communication sent out to the CNGF, the AGA, the responsible administrators, and for goats, you guys know that will be the CCIA, because you'll be having Ashley speak later. But it'll be a communications blitz to say they are finally published. They'll be coming into force in 1 year. Now is the time to get educated.
Okay. Was there any more? Sorry, I had to step away there. I saw the little memo there about the herd mark.
Mhm.
Is there any question? Was there any questions about that from anybody? Or was that kind of talked a little bit more about? I think we got it there. Well, I guess, what do you guys feel about that option for the herd mark for goats underneath a year old?
Going to
Right.
slaughter now.
Yeah, going to slaughter, right? For all the dairy people, yeah. And that was kind of the idea and focus from industry, was that that's a big cost to be putting one of those little tags in for those goats that are only 3 to 5 days old when they're being sold, especially from the dairies.
Mhm.
And so having that herd mark on there helps them, reduce their costs and hopefully reduce any humane issues there might be with
Mhm.
animal welfare. Is there any other questions? Well, we got Edward here this is CFIA. You can ask him, well, not every question, but anything to do with the goat regs or the new traceability. So I think your guys' plan is to talk to industry sometime next year about the regs here. So the industry that is here, do you guys have any questions about how we can, for Alberta goat? And I also sit as the current vice chair of the Canadian National Goat Federation. So anything here, I can always bring it to that side of it to ask more questions or pursue. One of the things we had talked about, and we kind of we've been trying to play a juggling act with it, was been about the pet tags or pet status for goats. And okay, sorry, there's a question.
Real, like, paperwork rules rather than all on computers. You're gonna have a publication of paperwork rules. Yes.
So Edward, the question is for those that aren't as computer savvy, is there a hard copy paperwork that can be picked up from somewhere, or so that they can submit their information with a hard copy?
Yeah, and there totally is. We do realize that not everyone is computer savvy, and there are communities that just don't even use technology, right? So and obviously play a big role in livestock production. So Ashley from CCIA is going to be speaking later, correct, Mallory? Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna, just so you know, because maybe you stepped out whenever I mentioned it, but I'll probably stick around for her talk as well, just so in case there are CFIA related questions. But to get to the point of it, the CCIA has been the responsible administrator for cattle, sheep, and bison for a long time, and they have a call center. You can send in faxes, you can mail in this information if you so desire, but you can also pick up a phone and call in and speak to someone to send in this information. I don't know if they have a specific template form right away that's available that you can download and handwrite a lot of the information. I suspect that they do, or they make something available for that. But yes, we are aware that not everyone will be using the computer to report this information, and we're trying. And CCIA is doing their best to make sure that those people can still report in as conveniently as possible.
What about carrier pigeons? Do you guys accept carrier pigeons?
As long as they're actually, no, we don't tag. We don't care about poultry.
Well, just like messages coming in via carrier pigeons.
Yeah. No, I know. I was just making the next
Yeah.
level joke on that one.
Yeah. Regarding pet goats? So it's about there's people that will often take their pet goats for walks for about 2 or 3 kilometers.
Mm-hmm.
Does that need to be reported, or is that considered like a low risk? And
I mean, it doesn't need to be reported as long as they're not taking the animal to an actual pasture where there's other animals. I mean, if they're taking their animal for a walk, their goat for a walk, that's, you know, just enjoying its company and having some exercise. If they take their animal to a fence line and there's nose to nose contact, I mean, there's not much that can be done about that. And I don't know if you'd even be able to report that unless you know your neighbor's PID or whatever it is. But at the same time, it's about common sense of like, you know, disease transmission and whatnot. Like, is there a risk there? If you're just walking around, you know, the country block, and with your animal, there shouldn't be any reason to report. But if you specifically are taking it for, I don't know, a pet goat play date with other goats, then you're commingling and there's a risk, right?
yeah. So yes, back to the what I was saying about the pet goat status. There was some conversation about that last year when we had a kind of a town hall with Edward and CFIA about a pet goat status. It was brought up because the pigs have a similar status as well, but to what I've been understood that there has been no pet pig that has been registered as a pet pig. The idea was to maybe help some of those producers that wanted to have that status and didn't want to have a tag put into the ear. And the idea was that the pet goats would be able to have a microchip in them, but after a lot of reflection and communication between CNGF and CFIA, there wasn't a good way for us to protect abattoirs or even sales yards from those animals coming in with a microchip and then a tag, and then all of a sudden you're reporting of 2 different owners and 2 different situations. And I think you guys are still working with Health Canada too about the microchip
Yeah,
thing as
there's
well,
this,
because
the issue of the foreign body. Yeah, of like, so when they do go to slaughter, and that was the point that was kind of raised, is that a lot of these pet goats end up, if they did have a microchip, a lot of them do end up in the meat stream, and that is an issue for the abattoirs and just food safety in general, right? Like, just that there's a foreign body in there. So you know, we were considering it once before, as you mentioned, Mallory, because of the fact that it is a potential option for pet pigs currently, but it's very rarely used, and I think that the option of having different identification methods for pet animals is something that we can explore further in the IBR document where we have more flexibility. But for now, what we're based on, what we heard from the CNGF and just producers in general on this is that it's best to protect the meat side of things and not have microchips for pet goats at this time. So when we go to publication, the IBR document won't have microchips embedded for subcutaneous microchips for pet goats right now. We're not putting that on the table right now.
Because the other thing we had also heard too is that the show people really wanted to use the microchip option as well for their animals, and the idea is that those animals would not be able to show then, and so that would be now that CGS and the Canadian Meat Goat Association would now have to be the ones that would have to make sure when those goats came to the shows, they would have to kind of be the bad guys and say, sorry, like your goat needs to have a tag in its ear because that's the rules. If it's a pet, it can't show because it's supposed to be a pet, not a show animal. So we didn't want to have to make that be
Right.
Canadian Goat Societies or the Canadian Meat Goats thing that they have to be the judges and make the rules on that. So that was probably another really good reason. But we have we've asked CFIA to talk to Canada Health about, because in the States they allow microchips in any goat down there for through their different registries and for their essentially their traceability. And I haven't talked in a while there, Edward, but has there anything come back from Health Canada about how they feel about that, or how the abattoirs in the States are managing with a foreign body being in the meat?
Yeah, and honestly, we haven't had a lot of communication with like the USDA on that aspect as of late. We've been fairly kind of, I hate to say it, but like focused on getting the regs across the finish line. So that's taken up a lot of our resources. Plus, I think that the USDA is kind of strapped for time and resources themselves. But yeah, it is a conversation to have with the abattoirs. The Canadian Meat Council represents the federal abattoirs, but I suspect that there's very few federal abattoirs that handle goats, and it's going to be more the provincial abattoirs and whatnot. So it's going to be difficult to try and get that feedback from them. I know that it's within the CFIA's meat program, the meat hygiene program, who does have concerns about these foreign bodies being potentially making the food stream. For them, it's if the abattoirs can do something to remove the microchips, and that can be shown to be moving forward. This is me just guessing at this point, but the initial conversations, like it's really up to whether or not the abattoirs can handle it. Do these provincial abattoirs have a way to identify whether or not these goats would potentially have a microchip and remove it and demonstrate that to the meat hygiene folks, and then have a best practices situation in place? There's a big conversation that has to happen. That's kind of why this has been shelved for now, as we get into trying to publish the regs in general. Like it's not the end of the conversation, but we'd like to have it a little bit later if we could.
Yes. Is there any other kind of questions or any kind of thoughts on that from the room or from the chat at all? Yeah, so like Alberta Goat, like we want to make sure, like again with this roundtable, is that we have that input in those questions that we maybe as producers we're missing, like the bigger picture of what's happening behind with abattoirs or for the sales barns or for the transporters, to make sure that we're helping understand and educate, and then get it to CFIA as well. It's like, hey, like here's another thing in Alberta that we're struggling with, or that maybe other provinces are finding that they might also have the same issue and problem as well. Hopefully everybody can still hear me all right in chat there. And I guess like for you, it was great that you talked about the Scrapie there, because we have John Henderson here, and he's certified plus. I think he's the only goat producer that is, and everything. So it's nice to hear that you guys have kind of found a solution for that. I guess my other question, this might be more of a CCIA question, but is there any, is CFIA looking to go straight to having the electronic tags and eventually phase out the visuals? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry,
Ed.
I muted, my dog was doing his job and barking because he heard someone, like
Yep.
defending the property, but, yeah, so, on that question, the, oh, I'm drawing a blank, the visuals, right,
Visual tags.
so there will be the three options of tags, and there will be a visual option alone available. They don't all have to be RFID, because we do understand that RFID is they're more costly than just visual, and we do understand for specifically the meat sector, or sorry, the dairy side of the goat sector, there are a lot of animals that leave, so the herd mark's available, and then a visual only option is available in that sense. We're moving forward with the potential of electronic or visual. I don't know if we are looking to claw back and remove the visual just yet.
Okay. Because that was that's been from some different industries. They're kind of been, their jaws kind of dropped when they heard that the goats had an option for visual and the electronic ones. And I was like, oh, that's just
Yeah.
what there was an option. So I just wanted to, it was just a question I had, if we were going to be losing that, or if that's maybe been something you guys have heard from the sales barns, if they want to have just all electronics, so it makes things, moving animals much more efficient and
Yeah.
quicker with having those electronic.
Yeah, and it depends on what your production, what the path is, right? To the with the meat stream. Like if you're going to these auctions, the auctions might say we're not going to take any animals unless they have RFID, and that's kind of like a market decision type of thing. But there are some that we want to have that availability for that lower cost visual only tag. It does also exist in the sheep sector, but we don't have visual only for cattle and bison. And so it's I don't want to say lower value, but like at a certain point, like the cattle, the tags are going to be similarly priced to goats, but you're not going to get the same amount for your animal, right? So it's trying to make sure that things come in. We're trying to make as much economic sense as possible.
Okay. And I guess like the other question about the manifest, like from the CFIA side of it, often at the auction yards and at the abattoirs, they feel really like, because in Alberta it's not required to have that manifest, but they will not take your goats if they do not have LIS's manifest for their cattle that we are using. And we'll get to your question here in a second, Shannon. So my question is, I realize it's Alberta law that has to change it, but
Right.
are those sales barns and abattoirs, does CFIA kind of slap their hands can they get fined, I guess, if they don't have that documented transportation of those animals into, I know not everything's into, I guess, federal or even those provincial plants? And
Yeah. No, under these proposed regs, there's a requirement for any transporter of livestock, and so that's cattle, beef, or cattle, sheep, bison, goats, cervids. If you're moving livestock, they need to have their tags in their ears and whatnot, but there needs to be a manifest that goes with them or made available to a potential inspector, and then also delivered to the destination. Because the whole point, the way that this program's been made is that before leaving the farm of origin, they have a tag in their ear. That's like rock bed foundation. And then when they arrive at a site, you report information. If the transporter doesn't have the appropriate information and give it to that destination site, that destination site can't do anything unless that manifest gives them that information. So there is a requirement for the transporters to have a manifest federally moving forward under these proposed regs.
Yeah. So the abattoir and the sales barn that's accepting those animals, like they federally, even if it's a provincial organized, like provincial sales barn, they need to have that manifest because they have to submit it in.
Correct.
To you guys that it's been said.
Yeah.
A movement document.
Yeah, movement document, yeah. In case people don't like the word manifest, it can be, it just has to contain that information, and it's like 5 things, you know, the PID, animals, PID destination site, animal IDs, date of pickup, and you'll know the date of arrival because they will have arrived, and usually they sign, you know, the manifest. There's it also acts as a receipt, right? So you'll have all that information so long as the transporter provides it. If the transporter doesn't provide it, that's an issue, and report as much information as you possibly can to the CCIA database. And also there's a potential to say that this information wasn't given to me through the reporting in the CCIA database. This is something that Ashley and her team are working on moving forward.
Sean, do you have anything you want to add to that? You're just correcting me. That's good. Yeah, just because myself, I've tried or got my husband to go and try unload at the auction barn with, you know, just a piece of paper writing, and they're like, no, we're not accepting this.
Yeah, and that's the provincial, like they want the provincial manifest. Is that why?
No, it was just I wanted to try. We had we'd use the LIS's cattle manifest because
Right.
they kind of just hand them out at all the auction bars.
Yeah.
We had it still in the truck and filled out, but I was like, well, we'll fill it just a regular piece of paper, and with our information, what the goats are, and very similar, and see if the sales barn will accept this, because, you know, technically we're not supposed, you know, we shouldn't
Yeah.
be having to use somebody else's document. They wouldn't
Yeah.
let us unload unless.
That's yeah.
So
and so
that's, you know, where we're.
under the federal regs, we're not saying it has to be a specific document. We're the federal proposed traceability regulations for this aspect of it. We're not saying you need to use the LIS document. We're not saying you need to use the LSS document. We're not saying you need to use anything that is a prescribed provincial one, but you can, as long as it has the information in it, which they all do. But what you just described would totally be fine. You had presented the information to the destination site and it contained all the information. That's totally fine. It could be written on a piece of cardboard. It could be, you know, like you could embroider it. We don't really care as long as they receive that information you provided it to them as the transporter.
As long as it's in English, all right,
Yeah.
or French if you're in
Potentially
Quebec.
French,
Yeah.
yeah, as long as they can understand it. Yeah.
Okay, so I just wanted to ask, just because there's that confusion here in Alberta that we're still dealing with. So
Yeah.
question in the chat is, as a meat producer, if a goat is sold direct to a consumer as a live goat for their own slaughter, not on farm slaughter, does the animal still need to be tagged and a movement reported?
Yes, and so yes, the animal would need to be have because it's leaving the farm of origin. I'm not sure in Shannon's question if it's like if they're coming to your farm to do the slaughter. If they're coming to your
No,
farm,
it sounds like they're
yeah.
picking up the goat and then taking it to their farmer acreage to do the slaughter there.
Yeah, so
And
they
they might not
yeah.
have a PID or a CTL as
Yeah. So there's 2 parts to this question. Shannon, are you in compliance putting a tag in the animal's ear? Yes. That's where your concerns are done. You can give them your PID when they take the animal. If they're taking the animal to whatever site, they should be doing a movement report, but they might not have a PID at their location wherever they take it. Fine, they can report other information. But yes, they're moving the animal. They need to report that information. That movement report has to happen. I would say though, on that's a very municipal thing about the whole like slaughter on your site thing. I won't touch that, but the animal would need to be tagged to be taken off your site. Yeah, because it's not an abattoir. And when we have and so I was just thinking, is it under 12 months old? If it's under 12 months old, now we're talking some real gray area, because are you going to put a herd mark in if it's under 12 months old, if it's under 1 year? Yeah, that's a really good one. Now I don't know where we'd end up with that one. Mary Andre, let's make a note of that one. How would we deal with that when they're taking it, if it's not an actual slaughter facility, but it is potentially being moved offsite? I think we'd still want the tag in, because we don't really know exactly what they're doing at the end of the day with that animal. they say it's going for slaughter, but who knows? So I default to put a tag in.
Is there any other questions in the back here? Nope. Any other questions? Okay. Well, I guess we'll take go about half hour here until lunchtime. You guys, if you want to mute or ask more questions, either to Alberta Goat or to Edward, our lunch will be here in, like I said, in about half hour for 12, and then we'll start back up again here at 1 o'clock with CCIA. But if there's any other questions, feel free to come up here, put into the chat, or come find me and ask questions. And yeah, so yeah, this is kind of time just to kind of, you know, to speak more. So. And for the people here, there's snacks and juice and
I'm missing out. Oh well.
Okay, so Shannon's had more question here. Just to be clear, it would have to be tagged, but might not be reported as a movement.
Yeah, so I think that they, whoever's taking for their own consumption, would have to do the movement reporting. The question is whether or not they'd have a PID, because do they have an agriculture site, or is this going to be just taking place on like a regular site? So they would report the movement. If they don't have a PID, they can just put the other location information that I mentioned before. It's more burdensome to do your name, your contact, your legal land description, the geo coordinates and whatnot, which it would be required. But so PIDs are just easier for people to use. But yeah, so yeah, and I'd agree. I doubt they would have a PID as well. So you could just tell them they need to do this movement reporting, and Ashley can talk more about how they would do something like that, because they probably wouldn't have an account either with the CLTS, but they would still need to report in. Yeah.
And there's a question room. So somebody's buying an animal for me and they want to slaughter it somewhere else. She's gonna tag it. So is she supposed to, because of how we've established it here, who is supposed to report the movement then? If the consumer, the other thing,
Receiver.
Receiver?
It's always the receiver. Yeah.
So if they don't have that, but it is a consumer though, right? Somebody's buying the goat, they're gonna go do their own cultural slaughter or whatever they want to do with it. But they are just there's a consumer. So how is that?
Yeah, and so this is a unique aspect of the goat sector. You don't see a lot of this with the other sectors, but they're moving the animal from your site, and your obligation ends with putting a tag in the ear and giving them your PID so that they can report it. Their obligation would be the transporter. I'm assuming this is, that's the same person. They're going to move the animal like in their van or back of a truck, which is not an HT humane transport. Open a whole other discussion there. But however they move the animals, it's still that same party, and I'm assuming it's to their site. They are responsible for having that manifest and also doing that move-in report at their site. The traceability program is going to be built on move-in reporting for like 90% of the time. The exemptions I mentioned were like if you're going to an agricultural society site, you do the move out and move in, and going to the vet clinic, you do a move out, move in, but it's kind of at the same time when the animal gets back. And community pastures, you do a move out, move in. Otherwise, it's the reception site that does the move in reporting.
So then if because that tag is associated to, let's say it's associated to me, and that consumer buys that goat, and so that animal is always going to be associated to me because that consumer doesn't have the site or doesn't have the access to have the report in, right?
Yeah. And so when you say associated to you, like at a certain point, like this is about trace back, right? It's about like being able to know where. So let's say the real date. So if these people are taking, someone's buying a goat for a ritual slaughter and they move it off the site. I mean, 99% of the time, there's not going to be an issue from a traceability perspective, right? They're gonna be, as so long as they're doing the slaughter in an appropriate way, according to municipal regulations and whatnot, and so long as they report the movement and the arrival. Let's say that they report the arrival, they don't have a PID, but they can report that information of their site, fine. Your obligation ended with putting the tag in the animal's ear and giving them your PID so that they can report it later. That's where your obligation ended. And in the event of some sort of issue, you're not, you would be, so let's say the worst case scenario is that they actually take the animal and it's not for slaughter. And then they put it back into the meat production stream some other way, and it goes to an assembly yard. And then that assembly yard has an issue, a sanitary issue, there's a disease, and there needs to be a trace back. We just needed to know so we can make sure everyone and everyone's facility is safe and whatnot and appropriately dealt with where the animal has been along that way. Ignoring the potential issues of other things related to ritual slaughter and whatnot, you're not like negatively implicated as long as you put the tag in the ear.
Clear. Okay, well, I'm just gonna mute you here, and if anybody has any questions that they can come up and ask or put into the chat here, because we'll have it up on the screen, and we'll just kind of have some, I guess, socializing here until lunch comes in and get to know each other a little bit more. All right. Okay, we'll see you guys exactly back at like 1 o'clock. So
thank you very much.
All right, thank you. There we go. All right, you guys, thank you very much for hanging in there or joining back in. I'll try to log as many people back in that are for participants. I know I said 1 o'clock here for everybody else that had joined before. So welcome back to the second half of our presentation. We're going to be having Ashley Scott from CCIA do a presentation, and we also have two of our directors here, our employees are wonderful women here that are also will do a presentation as well about how to do the CCIA website and answer some of those questions too from Ashley. So from here on, I will leave it to Ashley here. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Just confirming everybody can hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, just to clarify, I do have two of my colleagues. So I've got Joel Smar and Melissa Selke that are on site and in person today. So after my presentation, they are going to come up and they will give more of a tutorial on how to actually use the Canadian Livestock Tracking System, our database. So I'll just kind of touch on some of the high level parts of that in my presentation. So again, I'm Ashley Scott. I'm the general manager at the Canadian Cattle Identification Agency. And it's a pleasure to be able to present to you virtually and have team members there in person today. So in my presentation, I'm going to be talking about what traceability is and who the Canadian Cattle Identification Agency is. explaining who is involved in the traceability system and what their associated responsibilities are. I'll be providing a high-level explanation on the incoming traceability regulatory amendments and how your industry can prepare. I'll be introducing the Canadian Livestock Tracking System, discussing the indicator approval process and the current approved indicators and applicators available, and also how to order tags. So for livestock traceability, it is under the authority of the Health of Animals Act and regulations, and the Canadian Food Inspection Agency does administer the National Livestock Traceability Program. So the livestock traceability systems are essential and effective tools that can help mitigate the risks and impacts during an emergency or disease outbreak, thereby limiting economic, environmental, and social impacts of disease outbreaks, food safety issues, and natural disasters. And it also provides an accurate and up-to-date livestock identity, movement, and location information. So what is traceability? Traceability refers to the systems that allow the tracing of an animal or an animal product all the way through the supply chain from birth to slaughter. A fully functional livestock traceability system is based upon 3 pillars, which I will review with you this afternoon. So animal identification is the first pillar and is the ability to identify and track animals as they are moved through the production system. Premises identification is the second pillar. Provincial PID programs were established to plan for, control, and prevent the spread of agricultural diseases. If you are an owner of livestock in Canada, you need to reach out to your provincial government to obtain a premises identification, also known as a PID account, and obtain a PID number. The PID number is a unique identifying number that's assigned to a specific piece of property. It's also used as an early warning system to notify animal owners of a natural disaster, such as a flood or a fire or a disease outbreak that could affect their animals or operations. And by completing a PID application and keeping your information up to date, you will take an important step in protecting your animals and those of other Canadian producers. The third pillar is animal movement, and that provides the ability to trace where an animal has been and what other animals it has come into contact with over the course of its life. So in the event of a disease outbreak, knowing the movement history of an animal is very important in supporting efficient traceback. So a little bit about CCIA. The Canadian Cattle Identification Agency is an industry-initiated and led not-for-profit organization that was incorporated to establish a national livestock identification program to support efficient traceback and containment of serious animal health and food safety concerns in the Canadian livestock industry. CCIA is the responsible administrator of the animal identification program and traceability initiatives for beef cattle, bison, and sheep, and pending the incoming regulations, cervids and goats in Canada. And currently CCIA's responsibilities are limited to bison in Quebec, but when the new regulations come into effect, our responsibility will expand to include cervids and goats in addition to bison. We are one of 4 responsible administrators currently. The other ones is PigTrace, Atestra, also known as ATQ, so that's for regulated species in Quebec, and then we also have DairyTrace. And as the sorry, my slides here moved. And as the responsible administrator, CCIA wholly owns and manages the Canadian Livestock Tracking System, known as the CLTS database. And in addition, we do have an agreement to be a responsible administrator with the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. So who is involved in the Canadian livestock traceability? From the government level, we've got the Canadian Food Inspection Agency and Agriculture and Agri-Foods Canada. We also have the responsible administrators that I outlined on the previous slide. Then we've got our primary producers. So we've got cattle, sheep, and bison, and pending regulatory amendments, cervids and goats. We have our intermediate sites. So that includes things such as assembly yards, feedlots, vet clinics, exhibitions, and auction markets. And then we have terminal sites currently for cattle and bison, and it doesn't include sheep currently. So I'll go into a little bit about what are the responsibilities for each of the sectors. So for the government, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency is dedicated to safeguarding animals and plants, which enhances the health and well-being of Canada's people, environment, and economy. They also set and support the objective of the National Livestock Identification and Traceability Program, which is to provide accurate and up-to-date livestock identity, movement, and location information to mitigate the impact of disease outbreaks, food safety issues, and natural disasters. The government also approves the responsible administrators who are subject to a contractual agreement that clearly defines the roles, responsibilities, and obligations that we have. They also approve and revoke the animal identification devices, which is usually based on recommendations coming from the responsible administrators. And really the most important item to highlight is that the Canadian Food Inspection Agency is responsible to establish the regulations and provides full regulatory enforcement for animal identification as defined in the Health of Animals regulations. When we're looking now at responsible administrators, we are someone who is responsible for delivering a traceability program that's defined by the federal regulations. So every species group with traceability regulations must have a responsible administrator, and it can either be selected or assigned. We also manage the database for a specific species and/or territory. We manage all things associated with the tags, and we also promote compliance among our regulated species through communication and support. So CCIA is the responsible administrator, and then we've got CFIA again, who's the regulator and the enforcer. Continuing on with the responsibilities of each sector, we have primary producers. So they must purchase and apply an approved indicator when animals leave the farm for any reason, whether that's a temporary absence or permanent. For intermediate sites, when an untagged animal arrives at their site, they must provide an indicator or deny unloading, and they can also opt in to be a tag dealer or a retail location as well. And then we've got our abattoirs and terminal sites. So currently all terminal sites must report the slaughter of animals within 30 days by submitting a retirement event to the database. When we're looking at the incoming regulations, that reporting window has been adjusted. I believe that has come down to 7 days. But if I'm incorrect, I'll let Jewel and Melissa kind of chime in and correct me there. So then what are CCIA's main responsibilities as the responsible administrator? So we maintain and manage the Canadian Livestock Tracking Database, known as the CLTS, which is secure and accessible for traceback. We're responsible for everything tag or indicator related, such as assigning the unique identification numbers, testing, any recommendations to the Minister of Quality and Distribution. We're responsible for the communication of compliance and explaining how to be compliant as a regulated party. So that includes things such as what to do, when to do it, where to find or send information, who does what and why traceability. And we're also responsible to help educate our regulated parties on how to use the CLTS and where they can purchase tags. So the Livestock Identification Traceability Program, again, provides the accurate and up-to-date livestock identity, movement, and location information, and the identification and registration of premises where goats are kept or collected, the identification of goats, and the domestic movement reporting of goats are the key changes for your species group in the proposed regulatory amendments. So what are the current regulations right now for your members? So at the moment, producers have the choice as to whether or not they apply tags. However, moving forward, once your industry is regulated, the rules governing tags are clear and outlined in the Health of Animals regulations, so the identification and traceability. So for the proposed regulations, I believe you did have, I think, Heather or Edward present earlier this morning. So the CFIA Owner's Guide was originally created when Canada Gazette 1 was published and original consultations were underway with industry. It is still the most current document available for industry to reference, and it's still located and accessible on the CFIA website. It is important to note that there will be some amendments based off industry consultation, and once Canada Gazette 2 is published, it'll be reflected. And at that time, CFIA will create and disseminate updated guides that are reflective of the published regulations. So what can you start to do now to prepare for the incoming regulations? So we've got 3 steps. So step 1 is to get your premise identification or the PID number from your provincial government. Step 2 is to create a CLTS account with CCIA. And step 3 is to begin applying the pre-approved indicators and entering the events in the CLTS database. Additional preparation steps that you could start thinking about is staying informed about the regulatory changes. So staying tuned for the proposed regulation publishing of Canada Gazette 2. Taking an opportunity to maybe look at updating some of your processes and systems as needed on your operation. And also being able to participate in any training sessions and workshops. So today is a really great example because, like I mentioned, after I present, we've got team members from our client support team who will be able to provide some of that training for you on how to use our system. And also, if you're ever looking for more information, you can visit our website. So it's www.canadaid.ca. And then you'll select traceability and then news and resources from our homepage tab. And that's where we'll be posting any new updates as they become available. So now I'll pivot a little bit and I'll introduce you to the Canadian Livestock Tracking System. This system is managed by the Canadian Cattle Identification Agency and serves as a national database for tracking our regulated livestock. So this national database is essential for recording and tracking information about livestock using the approved or pre-approved RFID tags. And these tags are attached to individual animals, allowing us to monitor their movements and events throughout their lives. The CLTS helps ensure food safety, improve disease control, and comply with the traceability regulations. It's also important to note that the information in the CLTS is protected and cannot be shared with others unless we are legally required to do so. So an example of that is if we have CFIA authorized personnel doing tracebacks, or if there's a legal matter being handled by RCMP. And all users must agree to a privacy statement. So this will pop up the first time that you log in and create your account, declaring that they will only use the information in the database for purposes it is intended for. So it kind of lays out there what the parameters are of what we're using the information for and who may have access down the line. So the system itself, we have a number of different items. So the first kind of step that we track in the CLTS is the unique IDs allocation. So we assign unique IDs from the CLTS database to approved manufacturers for creating the animal indicators. Then we have embedding IDs. So the manufacturers embed each CCIA RFID animal indicator with the unique ID that came from the CLTS database. For distribution, the approved RFID indicators are distributed via CCIA authorized retailers, the toll-free order desk, or online at tags.canadaid.ca, with all tag issuance records being reported to the CLTS. For application, livestock operators apply approved indicators to animals before they leave their farm of origin. When we look at recording the data, operators record and report traceability data such as birth data movements by associating events with the unique ID of the animal indicator. When we're maintaining the IDs, operators and terminal sites maintain the unique ID for each animal until export or carcass inspection. And then for data access, the CLTS database stores all of the historical data linked to each unique ID and is accessible by the account holder or CFIA authorized personnel in emergency situations. In October of 2024, we were excited to introduce a redesigned CLTS that makes data entry much simpler. The new interface is more user-friendly with streamlined screens and processes. Users are now able to enter data in different tabs on the same page rather than navigating through multiple pages, which is creating an improved user-friendly experience. Additional features include more automated data validation to minimize errors and improved reporting tools for better insights and compliance tracking. And just a side note here, in the CLTS Resource Center, you will be able to find step-by-step instructions that will make this CLTS easier to use. You can also find templates that you can complete and use to submit information to the CLTS. So here we have the new CLTS homepage interface. On the left, you'll see the sidebar menu, which provides easy navigation to all the key features of the system. To the right, we have a list of recent transactions for quick access to previously entered data. Above that, you'll find quick links to submit events directly online or through file upload. And this streamlined layout helps users navigate more efficiently, which is making it quicker and easier to submit and manage their animal data. So how to record information in the CLTS. So the current process for recording information into the CLTS involves using RFID tags to uniquely identify each animal. Important data such as birth date, imports, exports, and movements need to be recorded in compliance with the federal and provincial regulations. And data can be entered manually or through batch uploads. To improve efficiency, we provide Excel file templates that allow producers to enter data in bulk, saving time and minimizing errors. And these Excel templates can be downloaded from our CLTS Resource Center. Again, Melissa from our client support team will be presenting after, where she'll delve a little bit deeper into how to use these tools effectively. So on this screen, we're looking at the unused tag inventory module, which is a subsection of the broader inventory module. So this section allows users to track and manage tags that have been issued but not yet assigned to any animal. It also provides an organized view of unused tags, helping users ensure that inventory is being properly managed and tags are available when needed for future assignment. And this is the new event submission module that's designed for ease of use by our clients. Users can now input data across different tabs within a single page, eliminating the need to switch between multiple pages. And this streamlined process enhances efficiency and makes an event submission quicker and more intuitive. This is a snapshot of the new event submission module with a simplified interface for file uploads. So users can now easily upload batch files, streamlining the process for submitting multiple events at once. And this slide shows an example of one such Excel template. So the first template on the top is for submitting a birth date event, and the second one is for submitting a move-in event. And to further simplify the data entry process, we offer the CLTS mobile app. This app allows producers to enter data on the go, providing real-time data upload or the option to save information for later submission. The key benefits include increased flexibility and convenience, reducing the need for manual entry at a computer, and ensuring timely and accurate recording of animal events. And this slide also shows a couple screenshots of the mobile app interface, demonstrating its user-friendly design. As previously mentioned, if clients do need help, they can access the CCIA Resource Center to access all of our how-to guides, or they can call our client support team for assistance. I'm going to pivot a little bit now in the presentation. We're going to be talking about the indicator approval process and also the current pre-approved list of tags. So it's just important to note that as goats are not yet regulated, there was an ID committee that was formed with goat producers a couple years ago to field test and select appropriate indicators for use. The testing allowed the selected indicators to be sort of legacied into the program. And once goats become a regulated species, the indicator approval process will become more stringent. But the current process for the approval of indicators is as follows. So it starts out with lab testing. So if there was a tag that was being considered, it would go for testing. One is tamper evidence, tensile strength, testing, the temperatures that the tags can be successfully applied. So there's a number of different tests that are done. Once it passed the lab testing stage and it's successful, then we would move on to field testing on animals. And that process usually takes up to a year. So we look for different operations that are interested in being one of our test farms. And so we gather data on things such as tag retention, the ease of applying the tags, that type of information. Then the results are reviewed by CCIA's Technical Advisory Committee. For short form, we call it TAC. If it's approved by the TAC committee, then official approval gets presented to the CCI Board of Directors for their sign-off. Once that takes place, then we do a formal recommendation to the Minister of Agriculture. And then once it's approved, we have an agreement with the manufacturer for that new indicator or tag. And then we do an official product launch of the tag for industry to begin purchasing. So currently there are 6 pre-approved indicators that are available for goat producers. One has been discontinued, but it's still an approved indicator. And just to note as well, when I'm mentioning indicator versus tag, it's essentially one of the same in the incoming regulations. CFIA wanted to provide some flexibility. And so instead of just saying a tag, we're using the terminology indicator, just in the event that down the line, there's other research initiatives where we have a new type of indicator that could be used. An example could be a passive bolus, for example. But so currently we've got 2 RFID ear tags and 1 RFID leg band. There's 1 visual non-RFID ear tag and 1 visual non-RFID leg band. And we also have a match pair set that's relatively new within the past year. And it was approved by CNGF, and the first PO was placed last year. Indicators are also referred to right now for your industry as pre-approved, just as the goat species is not regulated yet. But once goats do become regulated under the Health of Animals Act, indicators will become approved indicators. So on this slide, we just have a picture of this yearwell goat ASET visual non-RFID indicators, as well as the one on the bottom part of the screen is the ASET FDX or HDX indicators. It also just outlines the package of 20 and what the price is for producers. And then this is the new Shearwell match pair set that was approved by CNGF. We did provide them with a 1-pager info sheet once this was approved and was being stocked in our inventory to circulate to provincial association for dissemination among their members. If this is something that you haven't seen yet, please feel free to go to speak to Jewel and Melissa. We can take down your information and make sure that we email you a copy so that you've got that readily available. And so this is the discontinued Allflex tag or indicator. So it was phased out earlier this year by the manufacturer, and we did work with CNGF on the possible replacement options for this indicator. You might be wondering too why we're working directly with CNGF. So on our board, our board members are kind of the national associations for their species group. So they have a seat on our board. And we also work with them when we're looking to put together new resources, or if we're looking to add any new pre-approved indicators available for your industry to use. So they're kind of our go-to in between. So if there's ever a concern or you're looking at potentially wanting to have another indicator become pre-approved, I encourage you to reach out obviously to your provincial association, and then they can reach out on your behalf to your national association, kind of has that voice around our board table. And then we've got from Datamars, we have the leg bands. They have been tested and selected for use on goats, and they can be used on any breed of goats as well. So we've got the visual non-RFID leg bands, and then we also have the RFID goat leg bands as well in HDX. So again, we just have kind of the package size there, what the cost looks like for producers. So when it comes to ordering your indicators, there's 2 different options currently that you have available. So the first is going onto our web store to purchase tags directly. We have created a placing a tag order resource handout for producers. And I also encourage you to visit our resource website, which also has the step-by-step instructions along with pictures to help walk you through how to be able to do that. Just a note, you will need an account to order online. If you don't have one, you can connect with our client support team to get set up. And then the second option currently is producers can call our client support team and order directly over the phone at our toll-free number. Currently, right now, they're only available direct from CCIA. They're not available at a farm or a ranch retail locations. Partially currently is because you're not a regulated species yet. But however, once that does change with the publishing of Canada Gazette 2, that would be a conversation that we have with CNGF to be able to open it up to other dealer locations as well. So we do have a 24-hour fulfillment commitment for the order being placed to the order being processed. So the cutoff for same-day shipping is 11 a.m. Mountain Time, and noting that we are closed on the weekends and statutory holidays. So the estimated shipping windows from CCIA in Alberta is around that 1 to 2 business days. Most producer orders are shipped by Canada Post. There's a few exceptions that go Purolator if there's an actual address and it logistically makes sense. Also, just important to note that during the Canada Post strike period, everything has been shipping by UPS or Purolator, just to ensure that the tags are making it out to our clients who are placing the order in a timely fashion. And there also is an option that was a new feature that was released earlier this year. We've got an express shipping option. So if you're looking to expedite your order being shipped to you, that is also a possibility that you can select when you're in the web store or by calling and speaking to one of our client support team members. So this wraps up my portion of the presentation. So I'll open it up if there's any questions.
All right, thank you very much, Ashley, for that. And oh, this got really big on me. There we go. Okay, let's see. We've got one question in the chat here. Why are they more expensive as compared to cattle tags? If you have a cattle account with CCIA, you can use it for your goats. And I think there's 2 questions there.
For when it's why are they more expensive compared to cattle tags? This is what we're being charged that's coming from the manufacturer. So we're limited when they're charging us a certain amount. We're not making a large margin on the sale of the tags themselves. I know something has been asked in the past at some of the other presentations of, you know, if you hit a certain threshold or a certain amount of tags, does that mean that, you know, that pricing would come down? Right now, that is not the case. I'm not going to say that that couldn't happen in future, but unfortunately, that's just not where we're at right now. And if you have a cattle account with CCIA, you can use it for your goats. I would defer that over to Jewel or Melissa. I believe you can, because you can have more than one species in your CLTS account. But I don't want to be speaking out of turn there.
You want to come up here if you want to, so everybody can. Okay, she's just going to come up to the mic here so that everybody can hear.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, talking to the laptop. It's right into the laptop. Okay. So in the Canadian livestock tracking system, if you are already set up with to buy beef tags, then you are already set up to purchase the goat tags as well, as long as your animals are all on the same premises.
Thank you, Melissa.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any questions in the room? Yes, John.
Tail tags.
Okay, so John is asking about the tail tags.
The tail tags?
Yeah, so those are the Sherwell, those thinner ones is often what often gets referred to as the tail tags in past presentations.
And sorry, what was the question about it? Sorry.
He was saying that once in the presentation, was there any mention of tail tags? But just to answer your question, John, those thin Sherwell ones are the ones that in the past we referred to those as tail tags, but they also work in the ear as well. So the one that's on the screen here. Okay. Does everybody else know that? Yeah, I guess, is there from CCIA diagrams or demonstrations on where to be able to place each tag and how to place them? So example, these thin Sherwell ones, my understanding that they can be used in a tail webbing, especially for goats that don't have ears. And that can also be placed in the ear as well. And then the leg band as well, right?
Yes, so we do have some graphics that were put together that kind of are showing the recommended application location. We also defer, so in every order that you're purchasing, the manufacturer does include the application guide. So we always defer to the steps that they're providing because it is their tag. But those resources both exist. So I would say if they're looking for one, again, I would defer to Melissa and Jewel that are on site. We can take down their information. We can also send those out to them so they've got copies.
Share screen. Is there any other questions about the tags? I think one of the things that did come up in Edward's presentation, and I guess we're just kind of wondering too, has there been any plans on how to get the for the under 12 months, what? No, the 12-month herd mark from CCIA and what the plan is. Has there been any communications there?
So that has to come from CFIA, and we have not had conversations with them. So
Okay.
They were more than welcome to have that conversation, but they need to reach out to us so that we can set something up, because I haven't I've heard a little bit, but I'm not sure because they're the regulators of the program.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, that's what we're wonder if there has been any more communications on that as well. Any other questions from the room here and from the chat? It's open up here for you guys.
There was a comment in the chat. Can you share the screen with the prices for the ear tags? So we do have resources that have that pricing that's broken down. So Shirley, I would suggest if we can get your email address, then if you're not there in person, again, we can email you out those resources so you have it. On that page that we put together, the pricing, it has all of the pre-approved indicators along with the associated pricing and quantities for each one of those tags. And thank you for your email. I'm just going to copy that and I can share that with my two colleagues that are on site.
Okay. And we're right now, like Alberta Goat, we're in talks with working with CCIA on a membership type of package. So when you renew or become a member of the Alberta Goat, that you get your first batch of tags, or at least $50 worth value tags on us as part of your membership. That's something that we're working with CCIA on in the background here, but that is one of the things that one of the big perks that we're hoping to have for AGA membership is that we'll purchase your first $50 worth of tags. That's often we'll probably be looking at the prices and different stuff here shortly, but you'll kind of get a see of what $50 gets you. And for the goat industry, it's actually pretty good for the amount of tags you get. So another question in the chat here. When we start purchasing tags, would you recommend we purchase visual or RFID?
So it's very hard for me to say because we don't promote one tag type over the other. I think something to consider is what is best for your operation type, and depending on where you're ultimately going to be sending your animals to. So if it's processors or auction marts, for example, inquiring maybe, what is their preference that they have for reading the tags, because if it's not an RFID, that's not going to be able to be scanned. So I would say that would probably be my best approach, is to determine your operation and, talking to where you're sending your animals to. I know there's a cost difference between the visual and the RFID, so.
Are there other colors for the tags, like pink or blue, or just orange ones?
Not currently, it's just orange is the color right now.
It's not as fashionable, but it's nice and bright so that the auctioneer guys can see it and shouldn't get her mixed up with anything else. Yes, Melody. So the question is, can a producer have a mix in their herd when they're tagging of visual and RFID?
Yes, it doesn't matter if they have a mixture, if they all are the visual, if they're all RFID, as long as they have one of those pre-approved CCIA indicators, that's what's required from when they leave the farm of origin.
Okay. Another question. Do we need to purchase the scanner if using the RFID example, purchase stock from a farm using RFID? Can you still see the visual as well?
So again, it's up to the operation type. We do have an approved scanner or reader list that we have on our website. We recommend or encourage that when you are purchasing those scanners, that it has both the FDX and HDX reading capability. Because obviously when we're looking, for example, for the Shearwell ASET tags, we've got that for FDX or HDX, right? So just making sure that both technologies can be read. Stock from farm using RFID. Can you still see the visual? You can see the number on the tag, but it's quite small. So it's all dependent on how good your eyesight is and how efficient or how many animals that you also have to see if it makes sense for you to be able to read them, or if you know you want to be a little bit more efficient, be able to scan or read them in and out.
Yeah, so as long as they, yeah, I think that was the questions. If they have, it doesn't matter if it's the visual or the RFID, it'll still have the 15-digit number on it. It's just very, very small in both circumstances.
Yeah. What's a rough price on the scanner? I'm not 100% positive. It's not items that we sell direct from our web store. I don't know if Jewel or Melissa might have a better pulse on what that range might be for price.
Because that's not something that we sell, it's all direct through the manufacturer, so we don't have any pricing information on any of them.
Don, do you have a question? No? No? No, Bruce. Oh. Oh. So for the reader, there's a comment in the room here that the price is between 1,000 to 1,800. For the Allflex one, is 1,500. Do you know for sure what the Shearwell one would be? Never seen one? Okay.
So just something to think about. I know like we don't have any wiggle room, unfortunately, because again, that's not something that we carry. But I know when there was some new species group, for example, I think the sheep industry, when they became a regulated species group, there were some funding or grant opportunities that were provided, and they were there for, I think, a 1 year or 2 year time frame, where, for example, if producers were looking at receiving a handling system, then they would get so much back from that purchase from the government. So that could be an opportunity perhaps for, you know, your association, for AGA, to kind of advocate to the Alberta government and see if they might be looking to do some sort of a subsidy towards those readers or the scanners. Just a suggestion. I know it's easier to say than it is probably to get done, but.
Yes, in the back. Okay. One of the gentlemen from mylivestock.ca is here, and he was saying that there is an app that you can get for your phone that can act as a scanner. It's not an app. Okay. Oh, it's a device that goes onto your phone. Okay. Okay. It works on all devices. Yeah, it's just a device that plugs in the bottom of your phone, and it can act as a scanner as well. So maybe that's something that we can work as a group to find, so that producers, if they want to have that option, that it's, you already have your phone on you, so all the time. Okay. I'm sure there might be some more questions here, but we'll let Melissa do her next presentation here, and we'll continue with more about from CCIA.
Okay, so I just need whatever web browser you've got handy.
All right, okay, we're screen share here.
Oh, your screen.
Yeah. There, now you can speak that in full screen.
Perfect. Should be able to make this full screen.
Yeah, just to keep touching the.
There, okay. Can you guys still hear me online? Hope so. Okay, so this is our demo CLTS. So as Ashley mentioned, the CLTS is the Canadian Livestock Tracking System, which is the traceability database for beef cattle, bison, sheep, goats, and farm cervid. And I guess I should probably introduce myself. My name is Melissa Selke. I've been a client support rep with CCIA for a little over 3 years now. I grew up in the beef industry, kind of across Western Canada, so Saskatchewan, Alberta, and BC. Purebred and commercial cow-calf operations and a few different feedlots. So that's kind of my background. And like I said, been with CCIA for a little over 3 years here, just in the client support side. So what I'm going to show you today is our demo site. So there's going to be a little bit of stuff that's maybe not 100% what it is on the production website, but it's going to give you a general idea. And then I do have our demo web store as well that I'm going to show you. So we'll get logged in here. So one of the first things to notice, because if you have never logged into your CLTS account, you would need to contact us. If you have or had cattle or sheep in the past and have purchased CCIA tags for any other species, you will likely already be set up with us. If you're not sure if you've got an account, give us a call. We will search for an account for you. We will get you set up with a new account if we can't find one for you, and then we'll get your login information all sent. So when you first get your login sent from us, it comes as an automatic email from our system with a username and an authorization code. So underneath here, it says need to activate account with authorization code. Click here. You would enter in your username and your authorization code, click next, and then it'll have you set up your password and your security question, and then you are good to go. We'll just go back to the login screen. And we'll go right into the system here. Oh, excellent. There we go. Okay, so to save that. This is our homepage. So from the homepage up here, one of the best things that I can say is up here is our contact information. It is always at the top of the page. If you get stuck anywhere, if you're partway through something, if you are just getting logged in, our contact information is always at the top there, as well as this contact us button. So this contact us button will put your email in here, and then you can add in any comments, whether maybe you're trying to submit birth dates on your tags and having a little bit of trouble. You can put the tag number in there, say it's giving me an error. That'll send us an email, and myself or one of my colleagues will reach out to you, and we can help you figure out what's going on with your system there. Also on the home page, we've got a few quick links. We've got submit events directly online, submit events file upload, or movement record. So those 3 quick links is how you are going to submit any information into the system. I know Ashley had touched on submitting directly online and submitting batch information through file upload. Those are kind of the 2 options here. Also on the home page, you'll see your recent transactions. One thing that I want to mention is recent transactions is going to be any time that you submit information, you're going to get a transaction ID. If you get the transaction ID, that means that you have submitted it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the information was successfully processed. So over here, you'll see the results, which if it's a green check mark, that means it's all good, no problems with it. The red X means that there's errors. Now, if you find errors on any of your transactions, you can investigate them yourself. So you can click on that transaction ID and it'll take you to the submission details. So it'll tell you everything that was submitted in there and it'll tell you what went wrong. It does not allow you to correct the error yourself. You will have to contact us to have it resolved. But if you, for example, submit a birth date and you get an error that maybe the tag wasn't in your inventory, and you take a look and you say, oh, okay, I mistyped the tag. You can put in the correct information. You just can't fix that error by yourself. You would need to contact us to resolve it. The address book, this is where you can store PIDs that you might frequently use, but that you don't necessarily own. So your vet clinic's PID, your ag society's PID, if you're going to take your animals to shows and stuff like that. Any PID that you're going to frequent, but you do not own or is not associated with your account directly, that's where that information is stored there. Down here in the corner, we also have the link to the CLTS Resource Center, which Ashley had mentioned. So it has instructions for every event that you can submit in the CLTS. It has the instructions for submitting it through a web browser. And we'll just pick a birth date, for example, so you can see kind of what it looks like here. So to give you step-by-step with screenshots of what the screen should look like at each step as you go through. Very handy to have. It shows you for web browser. It also shows you for if you're doing it through CLTS Mobile, our mobile app. It also will show you the instructions for downloading templates or submitting with downloadable templates. So downloadable templates, as Ashley had mentioned, are Excel files that you input all your information to. Then you can save it as you go along. Once it's all finished, you submit that whole Excel file into the system. It submits it all at once for you. All the templates for all the events are available here. Some of these events are not like, won't be producer based. So for example, distributed and issued are for dealers. So it's not something that producers are going to use, but there is lots of information within the CLTS Resource Center. And again, our phone number and our email are always right at the top there. So if you have any questions, you can always give us a call. We'll jump back over to the CLTS here. Now, the other thing to be aware of, this CLTS Resource Center link is going to be available on every screen in the CLTS. So it doesn't matter where you are. If you're halfway through an event, you can still click on that CLTS Resource Center and it will open a new tab it won't redirect you from the page that you're on. So you're not going to lose your space. You'll still be at the same spot. It'll just open in a new tab. This is our toolbar here. So the next thing we're going to look at is my account. So this is where all of your account information is going to be. There is not anywhere available for you to edit your own information. If you go onto your account, you see, oh, I don't have that phone number anymore. My email has changed. That email got hacked, something along those lines. Just give us a call. We can update it over the phone. It gives us a chance to go over your whole account, make sure we've got everything up to date. And if you have any other questions, we're more than happy to help over the phone while we've got you on the line there. Also on here is going to be your user page. So this is where you're going to find anybody that has access to your account. So right now we just have one user set up in the demo site. If you say you wanted to set up your kid or a grandkid with login information so that they can submit on your behalf, you can give us a call. We'll give them access to your account, set them up. Then you can call them and say, hey, I need you to put in birth dates. They can log into your system, put it in for you. We also have an option as it's a third-party authorization. So what that means is you can have somebody that you're going to take your paper records to. They are going to have their own account in the system, but they will have access to submit on your behalf. So to see if you are, maybe you're going to be a third party for somebody else, maybe you're going to submit for them. You click on your user page, you just scroll down to external accounts, and you'll see that you have access to submit for this account here. Now, if there was anybody that had access to your account, so anybody that was a third party for you that was submitting for you, you would see that information under the external accounts there. Your inventory, there's two different kinds of inventory in the CLTS. There's your unused tag inventory and your animal on-farm inventory. So the unused tag inventory, if you were previously or are still a beef producer or sheep producer, in addition to being a goat producer, likely your unused tag inventory is going to have tags in there that you don't actually physically have anymore. Whether it was applied to a cow and she ripped it out of her ear and it's gone. It might be, you know, applied to a cow that died but didn't go to the food chain, so that tag was never retired. Most of the tags in your unused tag inventory, the system has no way of knowing that it was put onto an animal unless you put into the system that you put it on an animal. So until you enter some kind of information on that tag, it will remain in your unused inventory. And then we also have the animal on-farm inventory, which is where you'll see all the tags that are shown to be applied to an animal. Now that can happen with you submitting a birth date on a tag from your unused inventory. It can happen if you maybe you buy some does from a neighbor and you take those CCIA tag numbers and you submit your move-in. That'll put those tags as animals on your farm. And then we've got our events, which is another spot that you can find submitting directly online or through file upload. So I'm going to go directly online just so you can see, and I'll kind of go through a quick run through of what each of the events is. So these are all the events. Birth date, pretty self-explanatory. It is just going to be the birth date for that tag number. Now, there are a couple different ways to submit birth date. If you have, say, all your kids in a range, you've tagged in numerical order with your CCIA tags, and they were all born within 90 days of each other, you can submit, it's called a birthing start date. So what that does is we'll apply the same birth date to all 75 kids, for example, within that range, and it will say that it was submitted as a birthing start date. So it means that those kids were born within 90 days, sorry, of that birthing start date. If you want to do individual animal information, so maybe you want to put the sex and the color and the breed, you would do actual birth date instead of a birthing start date. cross-reference and replace. So in Edward's presentation this morning, he had mentioned that if you, with the pending regulation changes, if you replace a tag on an animal, you're going to be required to report that into the system. So the cross-reference and the replaced events are how you would report that to the CLTS. Replaced is used if you don't know the previous tag number. Cross-reference, of course, is used if you do know the previous tag number. Move in and move out. Pretty self-explanatory again. As Edward had mentioned, the movement is going to become mandatory. So moving in would, the way that the system is designed right now, a move in, you would take the tag number of the goat, the date it arrived on your farm, and the premises ID number, and you enter that into here. So your destination premises. Move out is going to be the opposite. I know there was a question this morning about, well, what if I sell a goat to somebody that wants, it's live when it leaves my farm, they're going to take it to do slaughter, but they don't have a PID and they don't have an account in the system. While you're not required to submit a move out, you can do so. It will take that tag out of your inventory and it will show the date that it left your farm. Again, not a required event to submit, but if you want to keep your inventory kind of clean and up to date, that is one option that you've got to do so. Cited is used to report the ID of an approved tag applied to an animal that is seen at a location, but not necessarily staying at that location, not necessarily moving into that inventory. Probably you're not going to use it. If I'm completely honest, it's not an event that you're going to use ever, likely. Imported and exported, again, pretty self-explanatory. Imports for animals being brought into Canada, exports for animals leaving Canada. The difference between imported and exported and move in and move out is move in and move out are for domestic movements, imported and exported are for international movements. Retired and disposed. Retired, again, these are both end of life events. So retired is used for an animal that is going to be entering the food chain or intended to enter the food chain. Disposed is going to be used for an animal that is not intended to use or to be used in the food chain. Now, if we just go, we'll go under birth date just so you can see. Ashley had a screenshot of this page up there. Now, if you are wanting to enter a birth date on a tag number, I'm not sure. I had it set up on my computer to do, but I don't know if I've got a tag number on here. Okay, we'll try this one. Just so that we can kind of see what it looks like. Because we do often get calls from beef and sheep producers that are trying to submit information and they get to this page and depending on the size of their screen and how they're trying to do it, they get to this screen, they put in their tag number, they click add tags to list, it just disappears. It's gone. We get a lot of people that will say, I've put this tag in there 4 times, I can't see it. If you scroll down a little bit, it does give you the list of tags that's going to be associated with the event that you are trying to submit. So if you put on a tag, say you want to do 4 or 5 different tags that are not in a range, you can enter each of those, click add tags to list. If you put a tag that you don't want associated on there, simple as clicking the little red X. It'll refresh the page. Now the tags are gone from your list. Once you have got all the tags on your list that you want to submit in that event, you'll click next. It's going to take you to the event details page, which is where you're going to submit your PID information for birth date specifically. That's going to be where you'll put in the birth date information, sex, breed, color, all that good stuff. Then there's a confirm and submit page, which will take you to the transaction ID. And again, once you've got that transaction ID, you know that the information has been sent to the system, but it is not necessarily successful. That's where you'll watch for the green check or the red X. Now we also have a couple options on here for searching. Searching accounts, you're probably never going to use. Generally, that's for our dealers that are trying to issue tags to a producer account. They use that account search to make sure they've got the right information before they get into the middle of it. the account event summary is used fairly often. So what this does, you set a time, like a date range, and you can sort it by event type, or you can just do any event. You click search and it's going to show you all of the events with your account as either as a source or as a destination. So you can see here that we were the source account for a movement to an auction mart. And here you can see that I had issued some tags to this account to have use for a demo. So you can see that we're the destination account in this one. If you want to find your transaction ID from this area, you're just going to click on the tag numbers and it's going to pop up with your transaction ID number here. Now, another way for you to locate your transactions is under search and then transaction history. If you know the specific transaction ID that you were looking for, you can enter it into here and click search. If you're not sure, but you know, I know it was submitted sometime between September 1st and September 30th, you can go under search by details, enter your submission date range, and I'm just going to leave that one. So September 23rd to October 22nd, we'll click search, and it's going to show all the transactions that were submitted on this account within that time frame. We also have the search tag or animal history function. We'll do a quick tag search. Now, as a producer with your login here, you do have to enter the full 15-digit tag number in order to find the tag. So I'm going to enter just the last 9 digits, just so you can see what it looks like if you don't have a full tag number in there. It's just going to tell you that it must be 15 digits. So then you go back in, add your 124000, search again. Slowly search again. There we go. It's going to show you. Now, on a tag/animal history event, you can only see the events that are associated with your account. So prior to this issued event, there's going to be allocated events and manufactured events and distributed events. You can only see the ones that are associated with your account. Now, with that being said, if you have, say, a tag number that you sent to an abattoir and you want to see if they've retired it, you can do a tag history search, but it's not going to show you because that's not your account anymore. It's somebody else's account that has submitted that, so you can't see that information. Tag history is really if you're looking for seeing if you have submitted an event, a specific event on that single tag. And we did already kind of go over the resource center. So I do have our demo web store as well, but before we jump into the web store, is there any questions about the CLTS while I've got it open? Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, so the question in the room was there was a little bit of confusion around. I had said if there are errors, you can't correct them, but you can submit the correct information, which I understand how that's confusing. My apologies. So what I meant by that is the error cannot be resolved by you, but you can submit the correct information. So you can submit the information and it will show in the system as correct, but until you call us and say, hey, I screwed up on this first submission, but I've resubmitted it, it will still show as an error. Once you call us and let us know that, we'll go into that error transaction and we'll just say, resolved, they called in, they've already resubmitted it, and then it will disappear as an error for you. Let me see. I was gonna say, I see some stuff. Is it mandatory to enter the birth dates, all the animal information? Right now, as far as goats are concerned, it's not mandatory to enter anything. So Even when it becomes regulated, birth dates is not one of the regulated events. So you don't have to enter any of the birth date information. The reason that I bring up birth dates is it's the easiest way to move a tag from your unused inventory to your animal on-farm inventory once you apply it to one of your animals. Any other questions on the CLTS before I jump into the web store? All right. We can always come back if you think of something. We can always pop back into the demo site and I can show you some more stuff. And hopefully the web store demo will give me access. Now, our regular web store URL is just doesn't have the QA at the front. So it's still tags.canadaid.ca. But we're just going into the demo. Hopefully. Jewel, do you know, can I access the demo without being on the VPN for the web store? Okay. Yeah, okay. All right. Okay, so we'll go on the live site, which is going to look slightly different because I only have login for an admin. So it's going to look a little bit different than what you guys will see, but pretty much straightforward. So this is our web store here. Now, I believe you can see the goat tags just by searching goat. It's going to give you all the options of what's available for goats. Now, that's pretty small. I don't know if you guys can see that, but I know Ashley had talked about the different options for goat tags. So Shearwell makes an asset tag in FDX, HDX, or visual. I'll make it a little bigger. There, perfect. Okay. So yeah, as I was saying, Shearwell makes the asset tag in an FDX, an HDX, or a visual. So FDX and HDX are both RFID technology tags. The difference is simply within the RFID chip information and how it transmits. One transmits like kind of think of it like a walkie-talkie, like it only sends a signal when it's asked to send a signal. The other one transmits like a phone. It's just constantly sending a signal. Visual, of course, doesn't send any signal. It has no RFID in it. And then can I move over? That's fair. Yeah, so the question in the room. Yeah, exactly. So the question in the room was the number that is picked up by the tag reader is the same number that's printed on the tag, and that is 100% correct. The only difference is that the visual tag, of course, does not have any way to be picked up by an RFID tag reader, but the ones that have a chip have the number printed on the outside of the tag as well. So it is visual, just can also be used with a scanner. And that's what's reflected in the price there, just the difference. Those are all 20 packs. And it's just the difference between which ones have chips and which ones don't. Now we also have, Shearwell also has the asset indicator visual set. So what that is the little dangle tag. If I open it up, actually, this little dangle tag here, that is a visual tag, and that asset tag is your RFID chip tag. So it has both. You'll notice on there that the 344-999-999 is the same on the RFID tag as it is on the visual tag. It's really just preference if you want to use a matched pair set, if you want to stick with just visual, if you want to stick with just an RFID tag. And we'll go back here. And then the one thing to be aware of, if you do decide to go with the Shearwell asset matched pair set that has the visual and the RFID tag, you are going to need 2 separate applicators. They do not use the same applicator. You'll see here, this is the asset applicator and this is the visual tag applicator. So there is that to take into consideration. There's also the Datamars Z-Tags leg bands. So again, leg bands are available as a 5-pack of visual, a 10-pack of visual, or a 20-pack of HDX. All the pricing is available on our website. Now, I'm not logged into the web store, so you don't necessarily have to have a web store account to be able to see the pricing. If you want to be set up with a web store account in preparation for the coming regs, of course, we're more than happy to help you get set up with that. But you can, if you want to go take a look in there in preparation, you can do that for sure. And then what I'm going to do is I will go to the login. Do you want to just log into yours and take a look around? Okay, it's already saved on here, so we'll just log right in. Okay, doesn't really look too much different. The one thing that you can notice that's different is your farm name will be up here at the top right-hand corner, and it's now changed to log out, as well as there's a shopping cart here now. If you are not seeing a shopping cart, it means you're not logged in. So it's not going to let you place an order unless you can see that shopping cart there. Going to be pretty much all the same. You can search by goat, you can search by manufacturer if you have a manufacturer that you prefer. One thing that I did want to show you within here is once you are logged in, you can go under your account to see your addresses. Are you okay if I share that? Yeah. Okay. So you can see your addresses that are on file. You can see your orders, past orders in here. We don't have any orders in here right now. I mean, even logging in as admin, all it shows is there's the order number here, and then beside it, there's a little green plus that you can click on that'll show you the details of that order. So what was in that order, if it's shipped, if it's been delivered, if the order's complete, that kind of stuff. That's pretty much the gist of the web store. Oh, one more thing that I'll show you on the web store. At the very bottom, if you would like to see our return policy, you can read it all online. Because goats are not approved or not regulated yet, they are still pre-regulated. There is a no return policy on goat tags currently. I suspect that will change when they become regulated, and it'll follow suit with our return policy for all the other species, which is unopened and undamaged, 10% restocking fee, cost of return shipping is at your expense, and must be initiated within 5 business days of getting your order. So. Yeah, absolutely. So it was mentioned in the room as well that if you maybe you buy 100 tags and you only use 80 and you don't know what to do with the other 20, you can save them for next year. They don't expire. You can just use them until they're gone. If you only use 80 and you sold all your goats, you're not having any more goats, you can transfer them to another goat producer that you know. There's just one form that needs to be filled out and signed by both you and whoever you are transferring them to. You send that in to us, we move the tags from their inventory or from your inventory into their inventory. Tag transfers? Yeah. Yep. Yeah, as long as the form is filled out and we get them moved over from one account to the other, they're good to be used. So any other questions about the web store? Anything that came up about the CLTS?
Because people are asking about the price of the tags and obviously there's moving streets as a travel. What is the CCIAs and CNGF is also getting a small percentage of each tag is sold to. It's from CNGF, so just for transparency. I believe the CNGF is 20%.
I'm not sure. Jules, do you know on that one? Okay.
And CCIA, I think you guys like said would be cents or something like that, or P60. So that's how much is when you're purchasing your tag, that is what's going to check off essentially. What are all the amounts we yes to the we don't have that, so that's so I some people
Computer here. So, when it comes to, I know some people are comparing prices on some of the items there. Do we still have that up?
Yeah.
Prices on the tags.
Are you going to do tags or we're doing
Just the Go tags. Trying to help sell the product here. So the sheep have the similar Sherwell tag as well. But that is sold through the wool growers. And for a 10-pack they sell through wool growers, it's $41.50. As you can see here, $47 you're getting a 20-pack or a 40. Or you could get 2 bags and get a 40-pack. So for producers, I want you to kind of keep that in mind. I know it seems like these prices might seem higher, outrageous, but if you compare to what the sheep producers have to pay in Alberta anyways, it's a little different from province to province, but that is what goat producers are paying across Canada currently. And to my knowledge, CNGF isn't interested in raising the price. Yes. Right now, this is the only option is to purchase from. If you talk to your local like UFA or like a retailer, correct? That they can have the option to bring the tags in if they want, but should be them answering.
So right now, the question in the room was, is CCIA the only place that you can buy the tags? Yes, right now, we don't know once they become regulated. That's still up in the air. We're not 100% sure if they'll be available through vet clinics, UFAs, that kind of stuff. Once we know, you will know. Yeah, so I suspect once they become regulated, auctions will be the same as they are now for cattle. If you take goats that are untagged, they'll have to apply tags. And you will have to pay for them. They won't, it's still up in the air whether they'll be able to sell you a package of tags. They'll be able to do incidental tagging like they do now. But yeah, undetermined still on if they'll be available elsewhere. Make sure I'm not missing anything in the chat. Oh, I stopped sharing the screen so they didn't see the.
Oh,
hold on, I'll bring it back up for you. Maybe. There, you able to see that now for the pricing? Perfect. Yeah, so Mallory was just mentioning what you said, it was $41.50 for a 10-pack for sheep tags through wool growers. So I guess in comparison for the goat tag, not quite as much. Are there any other questions about the CLTS or the web store? Anything else that maybe CCIA can help with while we're here?
What you're requiring. This is you take 27 animals to the show. And 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 you take 27 animals You don't have to repeat. Oh, you just
No, okay, so the question in the room was if you take multiple animals to a show, do you have to repeat the PID for each of them? Short answer is no. You can put all of those tag numbers, like each tag number for those animals, onto one transaction. So you only have to put the PID for the Ag Society once, you only have to put your PID once, you only have to put the date of departure and the date of arrival once. You just have to make sure that all 27 tag numbers are on that same transaction. Yeah. All right. I think that's pretty much it for me. If there's no more questions. All right, I will hand it back over to Mallory.
All right, hey you guys, online and obviously in the room. So yeah, it's kind of a little quick tour here through the CCIA's website here for the goats. I know I've heard, I know definitely heard some feedback about the leg bands of people not being as happy about them, both them rubbing or falling off, kind of thing. But, and I know that there has been a lot of talk, especially out of the West Coast, that they would like to see a different tag. And to my knowledge, CCIA is doing a little bit of research on a Boleos tag, I think, possibly. Project. Yeah. So there's that possibility and an option looking forward. So that's what Edward was kind of saying earlier, is that they've really left the vocabulary open to different opportunities. So it's not just tags per se. So eventually, like, we can get down to the line of having artificial intelligence, right? So with cattle, for example, their noses are like our fingerprints. They're all individual. And so with a camera, they can scan that cattle's face and it'll tell them that is this cow when it comes up to the water or up to a feeder. I know in China and South Korea, they've been doing with goats anyway, some research on doing that type of stuff with dairy goats for milking and for production side of that too. So there's open opportunity for those kinds of technology to come down the line. And right now, I think it was 2013 was the last big tag trials in Alberta, or in Canada, I guess. And so there hasn't been, reason we haven't done more tag trials since then is anytime that the Gazette came up about including goats, the goats either kind of backed out of it or the government changed and the Gazette could kind of push down to the bottom of things that were important at the time. So we're happy to be here, but we do know that you know, there might be other tags out there. We have to explore it. And then also if Ashley is still there and maybe most of you guys can, like, what is the average, you know, it's not just doing a tag trial, you know, there's a cost to doing it, is what we need producers to understand as well. So it's like what, 15 to 20 grand to do a tag trial? It used to be. $27, $28, John? Okay, John's been here like before the dinosaurs, so he knows.
Like, well, that was for the grants.
Yeah,
That's it was.
yeah.
But that was just a grant.
Yeah. So John was just saying that, yeah, he was part of the grant part, that's how much it was to cost. So I know some people get pretty excited about it and looking at the tags and their options and not feeling that there's enough. Also to say that we do have a lot of options too. But I know it's nice to have different colors and everything, but it comes down to the cost of the manufacturer and trying to keep things as minimal to our producers, right? And then at the CNGF level, you know, those funds get put into research projects and into, you know, covering costs for like the distribution of posters and stuff that we get from CCIA and again CNGF, where it's all volunteer board as well, right? So there's no nobody's getting paid other than our administrator. Type of thing for her work that she does and the hours she put in to keep us organized as producers. Organize us all that sit on that board. So is there any other questions about the tags or to Ashley or Melissa? Or if you want to get registered today, they can probably even look you up and help you get registered if you're here in the room. That's the bonus of being in person, kind of thing. But if not, let's thank them for coming. But we'll give it a couple seconds here to see if anybody else. Okay, well, if not, well, thank you very much. And I'll stop sharing my screen. Da, da, da. I'll share. Stop sharing. Okay. All right. Well, I would like to thank Ashley and her associates there for coming today and being able to be online with us, and all you guys as well. You guys, if you have any other questions about just the goat industry or goats, we'll be sticking around here for the next half hour. I'll probably stop recording, but you can put your questions into the chat, and I'll have the room here open too. I'll be kind of walking around, and I can be answering. Myself and my other Alberta Goat directors can be answering any questions that there is. So thank you very much.